Yes.
It's not luxurious.
That's all. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Teresa? 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 It's on.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we will try to speak up. We need everybody to bring here just so we can spread everybody out as much as possible. If you can't hear us, please raise your hand and say something.
Will there not be microphones?
There is a one microphone, and we'll discuss that in a minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with resolutions. I pledge allegiance
To the flag. To the
All right. Welcome. Any person present who wishes to address the board or raise any questions about public school district matters or governing policies can do so under public participation. No discussion of personnel or individual students is permitted at this time. A limit of 3 minutes is placed on each speaker. Persons who want more time and make arrangements to be placed on a future agenda. As a courtesy, all cell phones should be turned off. The public is also reminded to provide input on all motions to be considered by the board at this meeting. I got some public comment sheets. We'll let those people speak first. You got your 3 minutes. Public comment, that's at the beginning of the meeting. That is not our agenda. We cannot address. You can make your statement and we can hear you. When you use the microphone, stand about a foot away from the microphone. Don't lean right up to it. It gets too loud. On all motions, we're going to give the public a chance to have their say. And then once we cut that off, the board will have a discussion. And at the end of the discussion, we will vote. Once the board starts discussing that, probably has a discussion on that. So the chances before we start. So we're going to start with a bunch of public comment sheets. So we got JD Weber from Huntley. Which confused me, but it's all right.
Thank you.
Please use the microphone.
Sure. Pretty rough.
I was just wondering, I'm not gonna really formulate a question, obviously, but, there are parents, concerned with the multiple entrances that we're gonna have this year, as far as safety precautions that are gonna be taken, as far as, intruders and the measures being taken to possibly have more people at these entrances, or how a way to protect our students and our families better. And also with the high regard or high need for substitutes, possibly getting incentives or higher pay might increase that list for what's going on right now, and for people wanting to help sub and help the school in any way they can. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God. Jamie, I can't read it. Bainbridge. Sorry.
Hi, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Jamie Potter, and I am the new PTA president here in Lockwood. And I just hope, my hope this year is that we may be able to get past, or maybe even work through any grievances that we may have, that you guys may have had in the past with the Lockwood PTA. And I hope that we can work through it with the greater cause of our children and our community, because Lockwood PTA has a lot of work for our community and our children. So I hope that we can work together this year and have a great year. Thank you.
And Lacey Bowles.
Good evening, Lockwood board members, Lockwood school staff, and community members. I felt that it was necessary for me to speak tonight in regards to a future agenda item. This item is around the Lockwood Parent Teacher Association, also known as PTA. I have reviewed the supporting documents, and I'm sure for the reasons for the harsh feelings that appear to be present with the PTA. For the last 5 years, I've spent many volunteer hours involved in the PTA and working hard to pursue the PTA mission. But with every corner I turned, it felt as though the support of the PTA was not provided from our school and even board members who have heard me speak about the struggles we have encountered. I would like to recommend that the agenda item gets tabled, and that the school board would encourage that the school partner with the PTA in education of all impacted policies and a partnership in general with the PTA. In closing, I would like to remind you of the purpose of the PTA: to promote the welfare of the children and youth in home, school, community, and place of worship, to raise the standards of home life, to bring into close relation the home and the school that parents and teachers may cooperate intelligently in the education of children and youth, and to develop between educators and the general public such united efforts as will secure for all children and youth the highest advantages in physical, mental, social, and spiritual education. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, correspondence.
We had two that were included. There's a email from Danielle Graham Wilson that was included, and then also a thank you from Superintendent Hanson for her visit to deliver library books into the high school.
And those are in the documents. So we're going to move on to facilities report.
What about, do we have public comment?
We just did public comment.
Well, and I know I did.
We just did.
May I address?
There's one sheet there, and fill sheet out and get it done.
facility report.
Rob, is your comment on an agenda item or is it just public comment?
Honestly, I haven't seen the agenda. This is on the, I guess, the old plan.
So why don't you fill the paperwork out and then when we have the agenda item, we can address it.
Nothing that I was any question.
Really hard to see. It might seem, our parks seem really casual, but facilities have been a little busy the last month or two. Kind of thought with the COVID thing, have a head start on the summer projects, and here we're not done with summer projects. So it's going to be a push toward the next 2 weeks.
And I gave him some extra work today too.
Is there any questions about March report? Board questions, comments? All right, thank you, Mark.
I didn't have a question, but I do want to say thank you for the work that you guys have done. What you do with the staff you've got is absolutely incredible. As a board member and a community member, thank you.
All right, then move on to superintendent's report.
So I have a couple things on here that I want to address. One that's not on the agenda, and I'd like to highlight through our new curriculum director, Andrew Myers, we've actually partnered with Rocky Mountain College. We're going to have all their junior field practicums here on our campus this year. So that's a great opportunity for us to get those students on campus and the possibility for them to see how our school works and recruit them as future teachers for us here. So that's a great partnership. We thank Andrea for setting that up. I'm not going to get too much into the COVID stuff right now because I know that's going to be a long discussion when we get to that agenda item. One thing I just want to point out, there's some information in there. Obviously, there's changes between last month and this month as far as things that we're dealing with. You know, last month, the expectation was that students under 11 or under 10 did not spread the virus. That was based on South Korean study. Now there's been new studies, primarily in the American South, and the CDC has changed their regulations. And now we're looking at anybody 3 and over to wear masks. So that's partially why I have a recommendation to change where we require masks to the elementary kids when they can't be socially distant. This is coming in the updated plan. A couple other opinions. There's a really good opinion piece there from a teacher in Iowa. You know, I think that's one thing that a lot of us in education, parents and students alike, all want. We wish we could go back to normal. We wish we could go back to March 10th of last year and have school look like that. Even if we get into the green plan, even these other districts that are open up fully, it's not going to be normal. It's not going to be hugs and high fives in the hallways. It's going to be a very different school year this year, and you know, we don't know when we're going to get back to normal. I also shared another article there about Bozeman schools. They're going through something similar to what we're doing in another hotspot in the state. So we'll get into that stuff a little bit more. Mike's going to have an update after we finish this and talk a little bit about MHSA and where we're at as a county and where MHSA is as far as our activities. I pulled an update just before the meeting of our parent survey. We're still right about 16%. We have exactly 1,000 responses just before the meeting. And right now, we're probably looking, and some of those are repeats. So I've had to go through and delete a few of those. Parents change their mind, fill it out again, those type of things. But right now, we're looking at the opt-out. We're looking at about 45 kids in each of the schools that are fully open at this point. So the primary, the intermediate, and the middle school each have about 45 students that are looking for opting out. Varies a little bit from grade level to grade level. And then the high school is approximately 20 students looking at opting out. And then we're planning to provide hotspots for those kids that don't have internet access. Those will go through our libraries, parents, families will check those out. The one challenge will be some of those families up in the Emerald Hills where if you don't have cell phone service, the hotspot's not going to work. So there might have to be some arrangements made with that, for those families. And then also devices, all the Chromebooks are on back order. Right now, we've ordered several more Chromebooks we can check them out. And we just found out today that they're on back order probably closer towards Christmas, to be honest with you. So hopefully we're getting green by then. Better lessons, we had several staff members take part in professional development through them. Andrea and Cindy are offering some additional professional development on the distance learning and best practices on that type of stuff later this week. We've had great involvement from our teachers in that really turned out for that. Actually had a waiting list for some of the sessions. High school grand opening is next Thursday at 6 p.m. I want to invite everybody to that again. We're going to have 4 or 5 speakers. Chairman Sager, Chad Hansen from the Community Ed group, and then some of the key legislators to help us get the bill passed. We'll do all that out at the football stadium so we can do it in a social distance atmosphere. We got the Boy Scouts coming in to present the colors, a lot of fun stuff, coats donating drinks, those type of things. Then we're going to do the ribbon cutting, and then we're going to break into smaller groups, which is about 20 that we can do the tours of the high school. So if anybody's willing to lead one of those tours, let me know. We're going to get them for tour people. I've joked that we're going to do a shotgun start, just like in a golf tournament. So we'll have 8 or 9 places to go and start those tours and follow the same path. Big news with Boys and Girls Club. Met with them today. So I had kind of an idea that came up as we were getting ready to move out of our old building earlier this summer, the 1950 building that we were in temporarily. And they came to me with some ideas. They're hoping to be able to be open. So if we're in the yellow plan, they're hoping to be open. So if kids are in the AM or the PM, they may be able to go to the club when they're not at that time, which would really help out the community a lot, help us out a lot. And by utilizing the space in the 1950s building, they have 5 or 6 different classroom spaces they can use for smaller groups. And so we're looking at permanently moving the club down to that old building. So it'll be shared between the club and Head Start. They have access right there along Highway 87 for parents and all the way through the courtyard to pick kids up. And they were gung-ho about it. And so we're going to swap spaces with them. That's what I was joking about with Mark. And we've got a bunch of furniture to move and stuff. There. So I think it's a win-win for both organizations. They were excited about it. I think we're excited about it. The nice thing is they'll have their own space. And so if they are open during the day, those kids won't be mingling with the students that are here for school. So it'll be kind of a separate, great partnership there. They're as long as they can get staffing and get funding for it, they're hoping to be open if we open in the other part.
On that, are they doing like a cap of?
They will have to have caps and stuff. So similar to what they did down, so they've been operating there all summer. So they've actually, knock on wood, they've had no breakouts down there, and they've kind of come up with systems that are working for them. And so that's the hope is that they'll be able to do that here and being able to break them into groups. So they do it in groups, you know, kindergarten groups, they say. Like one thing they talked about, if you're in the PM group, you can come in the AM and then go to your school, but you can't come back after school because they don't want PM kids mingling with the AM kids that might be there at that time. So there's some of those things they're doing smart as far as trying to keep those groups separated. But it's a great way to help out our parents. It's definitely better than what we have right now.
And it's first come, first served then, or they?
I'm not sure how they're gonna do that. I know in Billings when they're offering, so they're looking at running micro-sites in Billings, because traditionally they would bus a lot of kids to one school, Castle Rock, I think for a while there. So they're gonna run smaller sites at different individual schools, so they're not mixing kids from different schools in Billings. And I think what they're doing there is they're going back to the kids, the club members first, they get first choice, and then they'll expand that waiting list, I guess, beyond that. So,
But they have to get staffing, that's why they don't have to do this summer.
yeah. Part of their staffing issues is they rely a lot on college students, and so right now a lot of the schools aren't opening full bore on site, so. And then, the next item on there is building the symphony. This great facility we're in today, we are actually partnering with Building Symphony. With the Alberta Fair, they were looking for a home, they reached out to us. And so what they're looking at doing is running their symphony in a different manner this year. So what they're looking at is probably 5 smaller shows, socially distanced. And then also our streaming capabilities, they were really excited about that. And so what a great way to roll this facility out to our community, make the greater Yellowstone Valley community aware of it. And so we're partnering with them. In lieu of charging them the fees that they would normally pay, because they're a nonprofit, they don't pay a huge amount of fees anyway. We're going to work with them. Gordon and them have had quite a few brainstorming sessions about possibly having a resident artist come and work with our band and choir kids, having access to their resources. It could be a possibility for future partnership. They run a family series. If they don't sell the Alberta Fair out, for this site venue would probably be perfect for them. And so that we've talked about the possibility of hosting that in the future, and just the positive press that comes with it. And then we've also talked about getting tickets donated so Lockwood residents can have the opportunity to come and get exposed to something here in our own facility. So real excited about that partnership going forward. I did receive an email from School District 2 granting permission to take our buses into their school district. That's usually just a technicality. And then the last one I want to highlight, Mr. Chrisman did receive a grant, $5,000 a year for the next 3 years towards the Hope Squad from Phyllis and Dennis Washington Foundation, which compared to some of the, we've had some grants in the last couple of years that have been $1 million or $2 million. The amount isn't nearly the same, but it really opens the door to get us our foot in the door with the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation. We've been applying to that one for probably 5 years. And this is the first time they've awarded us a grant there. I don't think they're familiar with that. He was the gentleman who owned MRL, or still does own MRL. And they do a lot of donations and those type of things. So hopefully that's a grant stream that we can tap into moving forward. Between Riverstone Health and this, our training and all the stuff that we want to do with our kids, our Hope Squad, for the next 3 years is pretty much taken care of. So great work on that. That's my report. Any trustees have any questions? All questions?
We've
We
got
have 2 trustees.
2 more members are on Zoom because they could not be here tonight. So we're still tackling this, making everything as hard as possible. So we're going to move on to our new activities director, and I'm hoping to bring us some good news, but I don't know what it is. Way to start. Yeah. This is Mike Erickson. I just hired him last month.
Yeah, so a lot on the table here as far as activities go. Just to kind of get you into a ballpark and everybody kind of in the same phase here, is we have MHSA guidelines, we have county health guidelines, and then we'll have local guidelines as well of how we're trying to create our activities and salvage a season for our student athletes. And we're doing everything we can possibly do at this time to schedule, to get things under all these different guidelines so our kids can have activities. And that's the most important thing. And it's going to be a very big struggle, a lot of changes, a lot of patience, a lot of floating schedules, and I'll kind of get through that as we go. So a few weeks ago, MHSA came out with some guidelines how we are supposed to follow each individual sport. And they put guidelines up there basically how to social distance certain sports. And so it's really created a big hurdle for scheduling. The luxury of Lockwood right now is we just have sub-varsity. Everything's based around, in the state, around when do we have our divisional tournaments and how do we get there and how do we get to the state meet. And so the luxury of us not having to worry about all that right now basically puts a little more content in my mind how we can just move back into and structure our sub-varsity events. but it's all based off of the MHSA guidelines. So little things going into like our MHSA guidelines is cross-country. 200 kids can only be at a cross-country event at one time. So a lot of our cross-country events have middle school first, then you'll run a JV meet, and then you'll run a varsity meet. Well, they're telling us right now that you can have that event on the same day, but our middle school event has to be ran at say 10 o'clock to 11:30, and then at 12 o'clock, they have to literally leave the place, and then the next bus comes in, which would be, we're moving to a varsity meet first before JV, so our varsity team would come in, and then we would move on, run their race, and then our JV team would come in. You can't bring everybody in at one time, it's gotta be social distance, and that with only 200 kids at that event, which causes a problem. If we have 40 kids or 60 kids or whatever it is, unfortunately, not every bus, not every school is going to be able to bring all their student athletes there. So we talked with ADs, you score 7 at the state meet, we're only going to probably bring 7 kids. Your top 7 will have to have a runoff or something like that. So top 7 middle school girls and boys, top 7 JV, top 7 varsity. Just so we can keep that mindset of 200 kids. Otherwise, we're just going to be running against, to keep that even for any other school that's showing up. So it's a struggle in itself. The thing I see about that is our kids are going to run against the same kids each and every week, because unfortunately the double A's don't have the luxury of invite the A's. We don't have the luxury of inviting the B's or the double A's, and the B's aren't going to invite us because we have to keep it at 200. So it really is a struggle there, time management, kind of seeing where things are at and what we're doing. We don't host Lockwood meet yet, but that's on the table. I would like to create that. So, anyhow, golf is very similar. You can only have 45 golfers at a 9-hole course. Well, if you invite everybody just within our conference, an Eastern A conference, with 5 kids, it puts us over the limit. So we broke it down where we kept the same dates, virtually kept the same dates, but the Northeast is going to participate in an event in a 9-hole. That same week in the South will participate in a 9-hole. When we have the luxury of an 18-hole course, that's the only time Northeast and Southeast will come together and golf. The big thing with golf is we will no longer participate with another team. So our ones will not participate with Billings Central ones or Laurel ones. We have to golf as a team. So there won't be intermixing. Okay, so that in itself is not really competition, because we already know where we probably stand within that. But that's the hurdles. But the thing is we get to participate, and we have to keep that in mind. So within those guidelines, we've had to recreate stuff. So after the guidelines came out, we met with the county health, Yellowstone County Health as the ADs, and from there, the big decision is fans. They're going to come down with these guidelines, and we've been tweaking that for about a week now of kind of finding a happy medium. But right now, they're leaning on no fans in the stands. We met with the Class A across the board, and I would say 90% of the Class A ADs basically said that's what their county healths are doing as well at the start. Unfortunately, with these facilities and as hungry as we are to get here, we understand the frustration for everybody. But the good thing is we do have our Pixel Lock cameras, which is the NFHS network that's up on the field, and it's also in our gymnasium where they'll all be televised. So if our parents can't travel to Roundup when we play a football game or wherever it's at, they will be televised in that sense within the NFHS guidelines. So we'll get more information out once we know if that is the case. We'll get it on the website and everything else so people can get that loaded and get ready. So disheartening, but we've got to keep in mind that we are offering, we're not canceling the season, we are offering an opportunity for our kids. Travel, just to kind of give you a heads up on travel, overnight travel, they're trying to tell us, if we don't have to schedule an overnight trip, don't schedule it, but if we do, those same kids that sat together on a bus are all gonna stay together. There's all these guidelines that we'll have to follow, which it's basically common sense because they want us in pods to keep us there for the tracking mechanism of it. So, if a child or a coach gets sick, they recommend that we bring an extra vehicle. At that event, bring an extra vehicle and send them back together or bring them back and not allow them to ride the bus. So that is a hurdle of scheduling a little extra, a vehicle or whatever it is, but we'll have that all scheduled out. Practices, the teams are gonna have to practice in pods, which is very frustrating for a football coach because you want your linemen and quarterbacks and everybody out there at times. So we're gonna limit the amount of times that they can practice together within that 15-minute time frame that they're saying. So, but we're gonna really try to be creative of keeping those same groups together throughout the season, throughout the day, throughout practices. So the monitoring and the tracking will be a lot easier if cases do arise. So, with fans means no concessions. And so that's frustrating in itself because that's a big, huge fundraiser for a lot of our kids. Keep in mind this, no fans doesn't mean no fans all year. It's the best opportunity for our kids to finish a season by eliminating parents mingling in the stands, yelling and screaming and bringing out the situation where they could catch it. Maybe the players aren't catching it on the football field or the volleyball court or wherever else, but parents can take that home. And so that changed my mindset on it. The fact is if we want to continue to have a season and finish a season, we have to eliminate as many possible chances of catching COVID. So that was the big reason behind no fans at this time, but we hope to open that up. I hope to move into home fans only, so we can actually be able to enjoy our facilities. I was hoping for that at the beginning, but it's just right now. This is not finalized. This will be a finalized document on Thursday from our county health, but it looks like that's where we're going. Class A then is ABs. We talked about starting our schedules. Again, it doesn't affect us. At this point, the varsity schedules for volleyball and football are going to start after Labor Day. We want to see what school looks like first, get kids educated, get parents educated, get fans educated on what it actually looks like. So that bought us some time there. Yes, masks will be required in many different avenues. If on the sidelines, coaches wearing masks at certain times. We've contacted, purchased a bunch of face masks or gaiters for our student athletes to have on the sidelines and things like that. So we're trying to get prepared. We're talking about face masks, clear face masks for football players at this point. So there's a lot to it. It's not just scheduling a game and picking out this is who we play, this is where we play. Moving into that on that schedule, like I said, it may be a floating schedule because we have counties that basically are probably will choose not to travel to Yellowstone County. They will not allow their teams to come play us, or they will not allow us to go play them because we are a hot spot. And we don't have the luxury of anything but having a forfeit out of that and getting that win. And that's designed by MHSA. There's two ways. You can have a forfeit or you call it I forgot the word
No contest.
what was it?
No contest.
Yeah, no contest. So which then if you're the whole seeding for tournaments and everything else has to adjust. So we may be in a situation where the game is scheduled on Thursday and that school calls us up and says, sorry, we're not traveling. So be patient. We understand where we're at. Our coaches and our kids have to learn a lot more than they've ever had to learn and to be safe. But the main thing is we want our kids participating. I want a season. We all want a season, but we have to do our part. And it's going to change each and every day. And so if we can all stay in touch with each other, stay involved, and be positive for our kids' sake, I think good things can happen and we do our part and we can finish the season. So,
Mike, do you want to touch on the Pixel system for if fans can't be in the arena? You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so right now in our gym and our football field, we have the Pixel system. And what it is I program the camera to come on at a certain time when we have a home game and you will log on. So you would have to go to NFHS. So I don't know I can't remember exactly what the website is to sign up. You'll download it and sign up. I think right now it's $60 for a whole season. So you get every game. If you want to watch a game in Florida, you can watch it somewhere, wherever. You got every game on there. But you will also be able to watch those games and you follow the school, Lockwood High School. It'll give you a notification when the game is on, and watch it. So you can literally sit in your own house and watch every single activity that's on. We have capability, we have something in our facility here that we can put those on as well. It's not just athletics, and hopefully we can move into that to get all of our activities that we can get online so people can view. So it's like a $60 one-time fee. And you'll be able to have access. And what's nice, if you do miss the game, you can also go to on demand, and that game you can watch wherever that it's out there. So parents and grandparents and everybody else will be able to watch that. So I'll get that information out as well. I don't know if we can probably get it on the website now that we have it, so you can click on it. It'll take you directly to that to download the app from your phone or watch it on. I put mine up on the big screen as an athletic director and watch our teams on the away trips. So it's a good way to stay in touch in that. So we will do our part. If we cannot be in the stands, we will do our part so you can watch your kids, and I guarantee you that. So we just want to see you. Any questions?
Thank you much. Keep us informed. Hope for the best.
Welcome aboard. It's a lot of the first one.
Good fun. We're all starting.
Yeah, second day.
All right, we're gonna jump into the high school project. Mark.
I guess this is the last official update. We're in the home stretch, as everybody can see. There's a lot of activity going on, as you would expect. It's a lot of little things. It takes a lot of little things to get the school open. We're doing things, the furniture, the library books, shop equipment, there's athletic equipment from the trainers, things like that. Finishing up our wonderful walking path that goes the entire loop of the school, which will be really, really nice. There's a lot of owners training going on right now too, because there's a lot of pretty sophisticated systems. And we're in probably the most sophisticated system in the schools is in this theater. And I know it's been multiple hours for training on this, but that's part of the process is you put all these new things in, the auditorium, things like kitchen equipment, kilns, things like that. They've got to be instructions from the vendors on how to use it. So we're doing a lot of that right now. A lot of cleanup. You're going to see some things from the outside over the next week or so, things that are identifying devices such as banners that got school logos and colors and slogans along the drive lanes and things like that, just to give a little bit of identification to some of the pedestrian traffic and things like that. We also have, we talked about this 18 months ago, we have an art piece commissioned for the front entrance. It's a metal sculpture of a lion, so we're looking forward to seeing that take shape. And literally it will take shape. We'll view that in the vendor's shop when they get it to a point where we've got a frame, and then they'll put it together. And they say it was 12 feet tall.
Yeah, it's double the size of the actual African lion.
Yeah, so 2
Top of
times the size.
even with the awning that comes out of the front row high school.
12 foot long, 8 feet in shape.
Yeah, 12 foot long, 8 feet tall. It's going to be really something. As an identifying piece, it'll be on those concrete pins out in the front, so that'll be front and center of our high school.
And that was something that came from community ed, and they donated money towards that as well too. It will not be in next week. It'll probably be installed either Thanksgiving break or early December.
Right. So we've got that, we've got some really good news from the people that are helping us put together our energy audit to the utilities. And I haven't even told Tobin about this, but we're going to be getting something between $50,000 and $70,000 refund on our energy savings between some of the systems we use here. So we're going to get a rebate check and now come back to school to put in the school fund. And so they made some really good choices in the design, energy efficient wise, green construction wise, if you will, sustainable design. That's going to be, it's already paying off as we're getting these rebates back for us as well. So with that, if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to.
Please come up to the microphone. Yeah, come up to the microphone so we can ask.
So you're probably wrestling about, in this facility, that there was training done. Will there at one point be a time when they'll be able to do YouTube live of this meeting, where there won't be echoing? Will they be able to be on the microphone that will stream well on the internet?
The question was just I guess, the audio quality, overall audio quality of the system here. What we have tonight, we're just touching the surface of the capabilities of this is an actual, pretty close to a concert hall. Doesn't have the acoustics that a concert hall has, but it will have the capabilities to streamline things like that. As far as the technical things and on the audio, exactly what that's going to sound like, I couldn't answer that right now, but I know that they spent close to $1 million on audio visual in this room alone. So it's going to have the capabilities to do anything that anybody wants to do. And that was part of the decision the school wanted, so that the community can benefit from it.
Board meetings won't take place in this room. This is only here because of the social distancing. We'll be in the community room.
And is that one mic?
I don't believe it's mic'd. No, we'll have the same microphone we're using now.
Yeah, I've been on the board for like 13 years. We've never really needed microphones.
Well, we're gonna kind of, and people can't make it to the meeting.
This is way more people than we ever have at normal meetings. We don't have a pandemic, so.
Come on.
Yes.
That people want to see it and hear it, and it would be easier if we were mic, we could actually hear it on meeting.
Well, we're working, that's something we're working for. That's with all the other stuff going on.
It's on.
With all the other stuff going on, it's just an added extra thing we're trying to get done. So. All right. Any questions from trustee? I think I'm on. We're going to move on to trustee reports, MTSBA training.
So I just concluded the training that's coming up on Thursday. It's the athletics and activities seminar. That's through Zoom. If you're interested in taking part in that, let Lori know. There's several topics there: student supervision and safety, social media for teams and coaches, MHSA rule update, COVID-19, coach supervision, contracts and evaluations. So it's usually a good training.
Yeah, it's a
12:30.
If there's a recording, it's in that policy.
All right.
Yeah, Lori, I'm always interested in the training. Any training that's available, I'm interested in.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to the consent agenda.
So I posted an updated version of this late this afternoon as we finished getting all of our people that were coming in and applying and sorting through some additional paras. It's the one with the asterisk, if you're following along electronically, but I printed a hard copy for each of the board members. And there's one more addition to this, that's Rosemary Erdman. She's gonna do the skills class, basically 1 day a week for 8 hours. That's the program we're looking at in lieu of suspension. We'll probably just have her help out with some other areas in designing the program between now and we get into the green plan. And then once we get into the green plan, she will do that support and knowledge in lieu of suspension.
So if there are no objections to the consent agenda, that will be approved. Hearing none, that is approved. And we're gonna move into the financial report. So prior to this meeting, we had a work session to cover the financial report and 2021 budget. So, any comments from the public, I guess? None. Trustee questions or comments?
I move that we approve the financial report.
I'll second that.
There's a motion from Joe, second from Pam, to approve the financial report as presented. Any other comments? And again, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? We will stop.
No, he's here. I got a phone number.
Okay. Just got that. Again, thank you, Lori, for all you do on that. Okay, 2021 budget. Any comments on that? I think there was a couple books that were taken.
Yeah, they were, I grabbed them. Okay, so if somebody wants a copy, they get more information.
I believe that we approved the budget, the 2021 budget.
I'll second it.
The motion from Sylvia, second from Joe, to approve the 2021 budget. Any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, and that's unanimous. All right. The COVID plan. The COVID plan continues to change, as information continues to change, and it changes all weekly, so at least it's. So I'm gonna let Clayton go on that problem. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's got it on too. And Melissa is also.
My name is Rob Hankins, and just a concerned parent, I guess. I want to thank you guys for all your hard work and hours of contemplating and thinking about what's best for our kids, what's best for their families. Just the daily plan is very difficult to handle. You know, my wife and I both work, and we're both educators as well, and we should have the flexibility to take half a days off every day. You know, talking with other family members throughout the community and even staff members and everybody's family. I just don't know what the heck we're gonna do. You know, we have a 9-year-old, you know, gonna be a 4th grader, and I just thought I would think that he's ready to be home alone for half a day. And I realize that you guys are looking for alternatives, and I appreciate that. I guess I just maybe would ask you to try to think a little bit more on what we can do as a community. You know, and I know that there's a lot of people that I have leave, but not enough to take half a day every day off. You know, I can't do my job effectively taking a half a day every day off. And so I just want to just put that out there, and know there's concern, but not to take away any work that anybody's done. I just hopefully that there's something out there we can all keep together to make it work. So, thank you.
and Melissa. Thank you.
I want to say thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I want to applaud all the hard work that I see the school board and other school administration officials doing toward making sure that our children are kept safe and receive an appropriate education. As a parent, communication is key for me. As one of our other public members pointed out earlier, having access to board meetings remotely at this time during the pandemic is common sense. Common sense that not all members of the public can come into the board meeting. Common sense that you're going to have an increasing interest in finding out what is being said, what plans are being made for our children in our community. I would encourage board members to explore our opportunities for communication through technology so that parents can become better informed. I'm also very curious if ADA could be an issue with not making those meetings accessible to some individuals that have serious health conditions that would prevent them from coming. When it comes to the COVID plan for our students, I am very hopeful that tonight we will receive more information. I have a lot of questions about what does remote learning look like? How does the remote learning compare to learning that children will receive if they are in the stage right now working for them? Who will be the student's teachers? If the child is in an AP class, will they be receiving AP material? What training do the teachers and staff have for using the technology? What guidelines are set up for the curriculum? If students are on campus, what is going to be done to enforce mask wearing and social distancing? As we can see, just looking around us, not everybody in this room is abiding by the Yellowstone County guidelines to wear masks or to stay 6 feet apart. What kind of mingling will occur between teachers and staff? How will that impact comparison to students? And what kind of cleaning is going to take place in the 45 minutes between AM and PM classes for elementary students? Does not seem like a lot of time for those poor teachers and staff who have a lot of employee on to conduct their work. That's just a few of the questions I've had, and I'm very hopeful that these items have been done for consideration, and that you will continue to provide the parents and the community communication on what is occurring. Thank you.
Thank you. What's that?
Coach, you fill out the form.
Should you comment directly?
It's,
It's not public comment.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
My name is Kelly Bouchard. I'm a single parent of two Lockwood students, second grader and a seventh grader. And as much as I,
Slide the whole thing down. There you go.
as much as I appreciate the work that you guys have done to come up with these different color plans, I honestly feel like your yellow plan is strangling a lot of parents. I am thankful right now that my job is being flexible with me, but I cannot guarantee how long that is going to continue, and I can't leave a second grader home half a day to get themselves on the bus or off the bus, get home, be a latchkey kid, and take care of themselves for half a day. It's not a possibility. And it's for people that don't have flexible jobs, you're literally making it come down to, do I keep my job or do I school my child? You could be causing people to lose their homes if they can't pay their mortgage because of this. If school district 2 can figure out how to do a normal school day, and the people that have the ability and the need to stay home can also do that, we really need to look into a way to find a normal school day for our kids so that our society can continue as needed. The new school hours for the older kids are a nightmare for a lot of parents already. with their later times. And so now to coordinate that with kids being on completely different schedules, if you have a younger kid and an older kid, it is stressful and it is just absolute headache to try to figure out how to do this and keep my job and keep my house and keep my kids educated. There's just no happy medium between all of that in this yellow team.
What else? Okay, I'll go through the changes in the plans, and then, we'll go through and probably this item will probably be two motions to both, one to approve the changes to the plan, and then one to approve which plan we start out with. So going through the changes in the plans, and as I said, a lot of these came from conversations with county health, the Montana Academy of Pediatrics Academy, doctors, just things that are developing as things go along here between now and last month. And so on the green plan, you see there, we struck students from the temperature symptom screening. And what we're going to do is we'll put out information for parents to screen their children before they send them to school. Kind of a list of questions to ask every day before you send your child to school. And so where this is coming from is, according to John Feldman, right now, a third of the confirmed cases in Yellowstone County did not come accompanied with a fever. And so the screening wasn't as effective as we thought it may be when this all first started. And the benefit of doing the screenings is offset by the need of kids to conglomerate and wait to get into the building or get off the bus or those type of things. So having them in a queue waiting to get their temperature screened does more potential damage than the benefit of screening them for the temperature. So what we're going to do is we have no-touch thermometers that we'll assign to every teacher. They have the ability to test their kids once they're in the classroom if they like. If a child's not feeling well, any of those type of things, any red flag, the teachers have that ability to test. And then we go through the same protocol we want to do. So they typically, if they're not feeling well, the teacher thinks that they should go to the office. They'll go to the office, get checked by the secretary, and then from the secretary, they'll go to the nurse or the CNA in this case. In my report, we talked about we've actually added additional staffing for our nursing staff this year as well too. So that's where we're at with the screening and why there was that change there. Next addition there is about halfway down. I added in students may be required to wear masks and face shields when outside of their classroom. Just clarifying the additional students may be wearing even under the green, depending on where we're at. Students will probably be looking at wearing masks. And then down lower, I just changed the wording there a little bit. Instead of having to have a mask, they will need to wear the mask. Just a little bit of semantics there that could cause some problems in the mind. So that's the changes to the green plan. The yellow plan has, you want to stop there. Is there any questions on the green changes? Okay. So the changes on the yellow plan is similar there in the first item. We're not screening the students. We're going to encourage the parents to screen them. There was a comment during the public comment regarding the 3 different entrances. The reasoning behind the different entrances for the middle school kids entering the building has to do with just not having these lines forming and having less kids in those areas. And we will have supervision at each of those doors. And those doors will not be left open. They'll be the same. Once 9:15 or 9:10 rolls around, those doors will lock just like they've done in the past, and you'll have to go to the main office where you have to scan and check in with scan your ID and check in with the secretary if you're coming in, which you won't be coming in, I guess. So, next one down there is the same thing. They on the bus, they have to wear the mask, not just have the mask. And then the biggest change in the elementary side of this is that goes back to the study with the American South as opposed to the change in CDC guidelines now where they're recommending masks for anyone above age 3. rather than above age 10. So right now, we will require students to wear masks anytime they're in a common area or when they're unable to physically distance themselves from others in the classroom setting. What we're trying to do by reducing the class size with the AM and PM, or the 1 day a week with the middle school and high school, is to utilize our space and our staffing to have those class sizes down where kids can socially distance in the classroom. So that they won't necessarily have to wear the mask the entire time they're here at school, just when they're in those common areas or when they're around other kids where they don't have a choice on that. So the teacher goes over to help them, they'll both have to put the mask on. We've got masks, we've talked to ordering gators and different things to make that easier. On the secondary, we've changed a little bit. It won't necessarily be just by last name. We have some situations where we have siblings that have different last names. We want to be able to have them have the same schedule if possible. And again, we're going to try and work with families as much as they can. If they have siblings and they don't want to hear the same day because maybe there's other younger siblings to help catch when they come home early or start late, we'll work with parents whichever way they want to do that. So we'll divide those kids up. And what we've done is we have a lot of Mondays coming up where we don't have school this first quarter. So we've actually switched the 3 days of school to Monday, or to Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll divide those up. It'll be gray, white, and red going along with our school colors. The kid will be assigned a color, and that'll coordinate with the day of the week. Typically Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but if we have Monday off, or like the first week of school where we don't have school Monday, Tuesday, we will run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so those Tuesday kids will go to school on that Friday. Same with Thanksgiving, if we're still in this plan, MEA days, different things like that. Mondays will be the office hours for the teachers, and then Fridays will be the days that we ask the extra kids to come. Kids that are falling behind, kids that are struggling with distance learning, kids that are struggling with internet access. Special needs kids that may be assigned to come on Monday or Fridays. The key on this is we're trying to get cohorts of less than 50, and that's one of the guidelines that we have to follow, the recommendations we have to follow. And so what's really driving a lot of this is our 6th grade and our 8th grade, we have about 150 kids in those pods. And so the idea is by dividing them up into thirds. I know some other schools have gone 2 days a week, Monday, Tuesday for one group, and Thursday, Friday for another group. But because of the size of our classes and our limited space and our staffing in the middle school, that's going to drive that a little bit. We've talked down the road, if we're in this for any considerable amount of time, we may change some things up on the high school and have meetings with parents and say, would it be better to have kids here Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday breakups. This is just the plan that we were looking at first when we initially go into the yellow. The other thing that goes along with this, both in the middle school and the high school, on those Mondays and Fridays, our teachers in the arts, basically in the electric shop, PE, those other areas, they may say, we're going to do, Ashley Kloss may say in family consumer science on Monday, I'm going to do a lab, a sewing lab. If you want to come in and work on fabrics from 9 to 11. And the first, what do you think, Gordon, 15 kids in that room probably? The first 15 kids that sign up are able to come in and get work those 2 hours for that hands-on. So there'll be some ways to supplement the online learning. And in the afternoons, you may have a cooking class that does something like that. What we're trying to do is allow flexibility for kids that need extra time on campus to be able to have that extra time on campus, while trying to stay under those certain guidelines we have as far as the amount of kids we can have in the classroom and the amount of kids we can have on campus all at one time. And here it talks about teachers rotating through the homeroom. That might not always be necessarily correct. We will try to do that as much as we can. What we talked about is maybe math, English, and social studies doing that, whereas the kids would go to their science class or to their other classes because of the facilities that are needed for some of those classes. We're going to try and limit the interactions as much as possible. We may even have, we talked about staggered transition time. So the kids leaving this class go with transition, and then the next class, and those type of things, to keep those kids, there's less time on the interactions. We're not as worried about that interaction time in between classes as we were a month ago, to be honest with you. What they talked about now, the recommendation is within 6 feet or more than 15 minutes. 15 minutes is now kind of that trigger rather than 5 minutes. So if I were to test positive, they would go back and find a list of people that I was within 5 or 6 feet of with masked or unmasked for 15 minutes or more over the last 48 hours. So that transition time is not as big a concern as it was when we made this plan. So I may end up taking that out. That's it on the yellow. I didn't make any changes to red, so I'll go the opt-out. So is there any questions on the yellow from trustees or from the community?
I have 2 questions. So for the secondary students, I noticed that we changed to just students will be divided into thirds. And so is that going to be, like you said, based on like siblings might be, you know, a certain class, and we're trying to put them together as much as possible?
Yeah, so what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and work around, we'll probably use the alphabet as a structure, but what we're getting is we're getting some parents already saying, you know, because they may have siblings that have different last names, step siblings. And so we're going to try and work with parents as much as we can on that. And then the other issue is, you know, sometimes you might have 2 kids that are vinegar and oil, we don't want them together in that smaller group. So we may take a look at those type of things, make those type of adjustments. What I told the principals is we're going to bend over backwards to work with parents. So if families need to be in the AM for the, if we're this for the elementary, or if they need to be on Wednesday or those type of things, we're going to try and bend over backwards for the parents to do that. You know, up to a certain point, you know, we have to, you know, we want to try and keep those groups similar in size. So it might not be strictly, and the other thing is, some schools I've seen are saying, you know, A to F or one group, and that might work at one grade level, but it might work at other grade levels. I know Gordon, just his difference between the freshmen and sophomores was pretty significant, correct? So we're letting them work their way through it, and they're working on that right now. They're looking at the AM and PMs based on bus routes, so that we can help families keep families together in those areas. Right now, it's a lot more complex than it sounds. I'm just saying, you know, every other kid's AM or PM. We have to look at the family dynamics. We have to look at neighborhoods. We have to look at, you know, we don't want demographically, we don't want huge diversity between the AM and the PM and those type of things. So we're trying to take a look at that structure. And so the goal is, for the principal, we had a comment about communication. The goal is that information will all go out on Friday afternoon. Principal's first day back was yesterday. So they're working on sorting through that information. Right now they're making phone calls with the opt-out parents, just making sure they know what they're signing up for, what that's going to look like, talking about technology, talking about internet access and those type of things. Because the survey was just a survey. They still have to come in and fill that form out. We just want to clarify with them before they fill that form out, that they know that we still want there to be some surprises on that. So we're working our way through that process. And those numbers, the opt-out numbers, impact as well. Who's going to be AM, who's going to be PM, who's going to be Monday, or red, yellow, or red, white, and gray. Too many colors. So confused. So there's a lot of that information will be going out, and will be coming out most specifically from the building principals in their buildings, going into a little bit more of that type of stuff. And Andrea and Cindy right now are working on a formula, you know, a form that will show this is what the expectations are for distance learning, because we may very well end up in red, you know, and we probably will this year. So we have to have those expectations in place for the teachers and for the students. We're also working through at different grade levels, and there's, you know, we're working through health concerns for teachers as well too, as far as, are we going to assign a distance learning teacher, or are we going to try and split that up amongst teachers at different grade levels? And that works differently at different grade levels. And, you know, Rob, going back to you, to your comments, our elementary principals and staff are very, very strongly that we needed to have those younger kids that are learning to read and learning to do math here on a daily basis to get that immediate feedback. Whereas we felt that the older kids, you know, being away from school for several days at a time wasn't as impactful for them because they did better with the distance learning and those type of things. So we're trying to maximize our decisions based first and foremost on what's best for kids educationally, while we're trying to keep them as safe as we possibly can in the situations that we find ourselves in. And you know, so I believe the yellow plan does that. Is it perfect? Probably not. And we'll probably make some tweaks as we go. And once we get kids up and running, we get our teachers here, we're able to get that feedback from them. And we want feedback from parents as well too. I will tell you, I've had conversations and received emails from parents. This is, in my career, this is my 15th year as a superintendent and 20th as an administrator. I can tell you that I've never seen a situation where there's as much damned if you do, damned if you don't as this one. I've had parents mad at me and upset that we aren't requiring masks 100% of the time, upset that we're not going full digital at this point, that we're even bringing kids back because of the potential for outbreaks. And on the flip side, I've had parents upset that we're not going full board and just bringing all the kids back in and doing school as well. And so it's a very divisive, and you know, I think we've worked through this, and you know, I would certainly put our plan up there with anybody else's plan based on the information we have available and the fact that we are a hotspot. I mean, Yellowstone County has a third of the cases in Montana right now. Bighorn County has, you know, I think they're second. And, you know, we border right kids there. We have, you know, they have kids that have family in between the two counties and stuff. So I think we've taken this serious. We started this process back in March. This isn't just something, like I said, I sat down and did on the computer. I think it was almost a 2-hour question and answer with parents on, I think you said you know, to try and answer all the questions we have. I think, you know, we're trying to do what we can to communicate, but we can't communicate answers that we really don't have at this point. But we're still working through some of this, and a lot of that we triggered by the board's decision tonight. If we started in red, if we started yellow, if we started in green, that gives the principals, the curriculum folks, and our teachers the marching orders to move forward. The other thing I would say, I point out, is our teachers have been amazing to work with through this process. I know other districts are dealing with negotiation issues and evaluation issues and stuff. We've got an MOU to approve later tonight, but our teachers have been great through this whole process, and they've had some table all throughout the process. You know, past starting March 15th or whatever our first day was, what we didn't have to.
The other question that I had, so in the yellow where it says that students will be required to wear masks, are we going to approach that similar to like a dress code? If, you know, a child is saying, I don't want to wear a mask, or I want to wear spaghetti straps today, we'll deal with it similarly?
Yeah, you know, it's a hot button topic, you know, and I think we'll sit down with them first and say, hey, this is required. The mask doesn't protect you, it protects other people around you. If you refuse to wear the mask under our guidelines, you can't be able to. And you'll need to look at opting out or whatever it is. You know, we call parents and have them come up with it.
I anticipate that probably a little bit more with our secondary and elementary, but I think it's good for parents especially to understand that, you know, opting into the yellow, that, you know, that will be required, you know.
So we have that. So in the survey, every parent can fill that survey out. When they check that box and say, I will opt my child to enter the right, or I will opt for the in-person education, it does say, I understand that involves possibility.
Two comments, one probably more humorous than the other. I had a student that actually read through the red, green, and yellow and asked if the groups could be include black instead of gray. Won't say who asked that. Secondly, Lisa's experience in teaching summer school in District 2 at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level said the first 2 days of wearing masks were kind of awkward for the kids, but by the 3rd day they had it down. There wasn't a problem. They got used to it fast. So those people out here that might be wondering, say, hey, my sixth grader, there's no way they're gonna wear a mask. They get used to it, everybody has to do it.
I would compare it to when we first put the seatbelt on the buses. Gordon, we were dealing with that multiple times per day probably. And honestly, now we probably deal with it once every 2 or 3 weeks. So, you know, like you said, they get used to it, they know it's an expectation. It's usually not much.
So we got a line out here, we're gonna take the public comments and then we're going to move on to the board. Give everybody one shot. So go ahead.
Okay, I just have one question.
Can you move up to the microphone, please?
Yep, is that close enough?
That's better, I think.
Okay, so I'm an eighth grader, and what I'm just wondering is, this will go, from what I'm hearing, this will go one day a week, and then the rest of it will be, off the internet type school. And then, like, in the summer, you guys thank for, not summer, but when all this happened, you guys thank for providing Chromebooks. Will that still be something you'll be providing for?
That's our goal too, right now, our Chromebooks, we have 300 Chromebooks on the way that are back ordered. So we'll have to take a look at where we're at with devices, but our goal is to provide a device for each other.
And when will we be able to get it?
Once we make a decision, I will get a letter out, instead of trying to do it.
Depending, that also depending on, you know, the supply, so, internet is also an issue, we have hotspots that are, you know, on the waiting list, so to speak. So we'll be in contact, you know, as soon as we can, to ensure, first off, that we have devices in our school to facilitate, you know, our classes. And then we have to make sure, you know, that we can reach out to those parents, that survey also, had a spot where parents who they had a device or not, and honestly, the majority.
For kids, for families that were opting out, not for kids that were opting out.
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to have to have an investment fund, is where it's from. If you're grants, if you're gonna supply for the school and for people, because all the kids will be at home 4 days a week, will need Chromebooks.
We also only have a third of our, if we're in yellow, we only have a third of our students here each day. So,
Okay.
so if we have a classroom set of 30 Chromebooks, 10 of them will be used in that classroom, we could possibly check the other 20 out. We should be good, we should be good. I just don't want to make a promise if we're back over 3 months with our Chromebooks that we purchased.
Just a few things. Number one, when are the optional forms due, and will we still be able to change which semester? Or does it might that impact our families? What's a typical remote schedule look like for the children? How will we be learning? And if you don't have those details now, when and how will they be available for us?
So I just answered that. On Friday, the principals will be sending out those of that information as far as what the distance learning will look like. What was your question before that?
When are the opt-out forms due? And will we still be able to change?
So the opt-out forms probably need to be in before the end of next week. The school starts the following Wednesday. So we don't have a hard deadline on that. But we would prefer to have them by next Friday. And then we are not making you commit for the full year. You can commit for the first grading period. So depending on what grade your children are in, if they're in the elementary, we're asking you to commit for the first trimester. And if you're in the middle school or the high school, we're asking you to commit for the first quarter. And then, of course, if you go back and read my letter, the other thing is, if there's a change, if something changes in your family, if somebody gets sick, if somebody gets diagnosed with cancer and you're not comfortable with the kid coming back and forth, we will be flexible on those type of things. What we just don't want to do is we don't want a kid saying, I'm going to opt out this week, and then 2 weeks I'm going to opt back in, and then I'm going to opt back out, and then I'm going to opt back in, because we have to assign our staff by that. We're not being as hardline about that as a lot of other districts. We understand situations change for families.
Sure, and I understand that was in the letter. When I looked at the form, those things were obvious, and so I just wanted to confirm that was the
forms part of board policies, so it doesn't have
I have a comment, I have a sophomore, and she's part of the health club. She's excelled a lot, but I did send an email in with a lot of details, so I'm sure you can believe that. But one thing I've not heard about in this meeting at all is the mental health of these students at all. We've talked about the physical health, we've talked about all that, but we need to address the mental health, and I hope you guys are really thinking about that. Because, my daughter's talked to a lot of her friends this summer, and they're struggling bad, hard. We need to get back to school. Not one area, no. Just, quite frankly, that's one thing I have not heard anything bring up to me, is the mental health. So, just a comment. You guys talked about that?
Yeah, we have quite a bit. One of the main factors that we considered through this process.
And like I said in my email, we've already had one attendance this summer,
So,
but I don't want to see anymore. I really need the mental health in school addressed.
and I think one thing we have to talk about when we talk about this, and I mentioned it earlier, we all want to go back to March 7th.
Oh, I agree with this, yeah.
Even if we open under the green plan, it's not going to be normal.
I understand that.
Kids wearing masks and.
But they do, yeah. And
So-
you don't wear masks, I don't have a problem with that, but my daughter's begging me, Mom, we need to get back to school. There's big problems going on. And she's a smart, young kid who sees things with her peers and knows things that are going on. And she says, there's some bad things going on this summer. My peers have changed. My group of friends has been limited because they're all making good choices. We have to get these kids back in school.
Another thing I'll
It's
tell you
bad.
is,
And Lockwood is a community that is extremely diverse. And a lot of these kids probably aren't getting meals. You know, they probably not sure how long it be who work from home and is there every day to watch them. And I just really think their mental health, their, you know, everything, abuse, everything needs to be taken. I just heard my daughter talk to me a lot, which I'm thankful for that. But I just haven't heard any of you guys bring it up, so I think it's, especially for high school students, I think that's huge.
and I would tell you that our counselors have been working with the students, and our principals. You know, we've done welfare checks. And there's been Mr. Klausman and Mr. D can tell you story after story after story.
Yeah.
They weren't breaking confidentiality of what we've done. Our community welfare specialists did yeoman's work, going out and reaching out to families. We provided meals for families that were in quarantine and all sorts of things. We did over 50,000 meals this summer.
Yeah, I think you guys did really well, and I thank you for all that. We don't need any of that, but,
And we have it set up to where we will provide meals for students when they're not at school as well. They can still come and get the curbside pickup. We've worked with Sodexo, we've worked with the state to be able to do that. So those are all priorities that we've worked on. It might not be addressed directly in this plan, but I can promise you those are the conversations we've had behind the scenes.
honestly, their choices, I heard a lot today from my daughter and the choices that are being made by her friends or her peers, or they need to be busy, they need to be back in school. I just want to say that. I want them to graduate, is what I want. That's what I heard from you guys, is what point your goal in Lockwood is to get these kids to graduate. From what the story she's telling me about a lot of her peers, they're on the wrong path. Just as they're telling me. And it's probably stuff you guys don't hear about. Because they're not telling the parents don't know, and they need to graduate. So I just want you to consider that. Please. Thank you for your time.
Danielle,
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments from the public?
I have a comment. I'd like to.
Yeah.
Danielle, I want to address as a parent, not as a board member, but the mental health is very top of mind for a lot of us as parents. My daughter's also involved with the volleyball program. I know what to speak. As a board member, or excuse me, as a parent, but serving on the board, I have to weigh out all of this, the mental health of the various kids. But if we let the virus propagate here and lose the kid that way, I won't sleep well at night. If we don't bring the kids in and we have mental issues, I won't sleep well at night. There is no right answer here. And like I said, I'm sorry, as I said at the last meeting, no matter what we do, we're not going to get it right for everybody. But we're doing the best that we can for all our kids.
Go ahead, Matt.
So I know that we have some other counselors and stuff on campus. Are they gonna be there on staff every day this week? What are we currently doing for our kids that are going to be there? Are they there? Are the staff there?
Right now, it looks like we're only gonna have one outside counsel. Is that what you're talking about? Our school counselors will all be available, and that's what they will do those days the kids are on campus. And again, if we have a kid not just falling behind academically, but a kid that's struggling with those other issues, they would be one of those children that would be able to be, come in on the Fridays, which are the black days, by the way. They would be able to come in on those Fridays and work with the counselors and get extra help during that as well. We're fully trying to implement the whole squad as best we can into this situation, and trying to have those kids involved with those different days as well too. So it's not gonna look like it's always looked, but we're gonna do everything we can.
I have one more question. Yeah. Have you had any substitutes who have called and said to take them off the substitute list with this new coronavirus going that we're limited on some of our former substitutes?
Yes. Several. A lot of our substitutes fall in the high-risk categories. They're not gonna put themselves at risk.
I kind of like. Oh, okay. Yeah, but I'm not, public's done after this, okay? That's the opportunity. Go ahead.
I guess it's kind of a question and a comment to tag on to Danielle, but I think what the kids really need is kind of just, it's the structure that they're missing, right? So they just need to know, how is this all going to work? And even I'm questioning how, like for the AM and PM, the other half of the day, are the children going to be assigned something? What does their day look like? And for the ones who go 1 day a week, on the other 4, will it be more structured than it was, in the spring, where obviously we were kind of in just a put the fire out situation, but, will there be, will they be accountable at a certain time, to check in, or I think it's the structure that they're missing too. And so I hope that the remote learning part will still give that to them, because that's really what they need. Also with the social, obviously, we can all do what we can do, but, so I just had a basic question of what does it look like? What does their week look like, whether they're AM or PM or high school?
So it will be much more structured. And so with the elementary kids, while we have them here, the focus is going to be reading and math. And so what we will do is we'll have additional work and lessons for them, focusing on those other areas, social studies, arts, music, those type of things outside of the time that they're here at school. So what we really want to focus on while they're here are those core areas. There's a lot of research out there that if a child can't read well by a certain age, they're going to struggle to read. If they don't know their math facts really well by a certain age, they're going to always struggle with their math facts. So we're trying to fill in those gaps first and foremost academically, And then we're gonna try and round that out with the online learning and those type of things. As far as at the secondary level, middle school and high school level, there will be more structure to what that looks like. And some of that's the training that our teachers have gone through and stuff. So, Andrea, are you comfortable addressing that a little bit?
So, hi, I'm Andrea Myers, I'm the curriculum director, so we do here.
Maybe you come over and use the microphone.
So currently, the administrators just came back this week. We've been working for a couple of weeks prepping for what this will look like. There will be a lot more structure than there was in the previous year. So I met with the elementary principals this morning to devise the plan for how the teams can interact and work together to coordinate what needs to be delivered for our children in the elementary setting, given the yellow hybrid model. I have not yet met with Gordon and Rob, however, and Nikki. However, hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have that in place. One of the primary structures we will want to be putting in place, that I'll be, sorry, I can't see everything, this is very hard for me. It is a lot more additional supports. I think you brought up a really important point, Danielle, and we were just adding that into the notes about how we can support children and what structures we need to identify when children are struggling more, and how we can flow that upward to get them connected with people who need to connect them. Also, setting up maybe like student support groups or little teams of students who can study together, but then also kind of look out for each other and notify us if there's something going on. I also will be recommending to Gordon and Rob. I'm kind of putting them on the spot, really, actually, because we haven't had a chance to meet yet. But adding in a level of an advisory structure where students are divided into smaller groups and assigned a teacher who would check in with them at least once a week on those office hour days to make sure everything's going okay and they're not struggling with anything that we can help fix. They can be. That's why we're trying to layer in, that's why I was a middle school principal, so I get it. So that's why we're trying to layer in, what are all those ways we can maybe give kids avenues to say, hey, I might need a little extra help right now. It's not perfect. We acknowledge that. We also, from the learning end of things, have a model that will organize the digital and on-site work in a way that's really streamlined and coordinated among the teachers, because obviously it's trying to attend synchronous lessons that are occurring at the same time doesn't work for a child who needs to be in 3 different lessons that are happening at 9 a.m. on Monday. So again, all of those structures are things that we can easily help put in place and ask our teachers to do, so that it's a lot more organized and coordinated, and children know what to expect and families know what to expect. So hopefully that's helpful. And no.
We went to March, she would get assignment after assignment, she'd say.
Right. So one of the tools we're looking at from the learning aspect is it would have every class the child is enrolled in on one grid, and then it would have the resources linked right there, and then also the assignment and the due date. So that the teachers can all look at what everyone's doing and what time they're trying to meet with students and coordinate that ahead of time. So we're not asking children to do impossible things. We're not assigning 5 projects at one time or 5 tests on the same day when they're at school. All of those pieces we can coordinate. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
One of the key aspects is a lot of it would be more of a flip model. So on the day that students are here, we don't want teachers lecturing now. They can record that lecture and put it out as a video, and all those kids can view it and get that background knowledge, work their way through some assignments. And then when they're here, we expect them to be interacting with the teacher, getting help from the teacher live in person. And that also helps build some of those relationships as well, that they could say, hey, there's something off with Susie, and we're gonna let the counselors know, maybe they can follow up with them. So we expect when they're here, those older kids especially, that they're gonna have more interaction by percentage of time with their teachers directly. Two-way communication, not one-way lecture communication, because they can do that through videos and those type of things. So kind of similar to if you use the Khan Academy with your kids, where they would get the lecture through the video system, and then when they're here, they can sit down and work their way through stuff with the teachers.
So, I'd like, Mrs. Fox or Mr. Kinsey kind of address the AM PM. I'm hearing these parents in my head about the AM PM concerns, and I get it. So I guess I need some justification.
Mrs. Fox, I'm a primary principal. We came up with the idea with AMPM because we know little kids especially need to be here every day. You know, some models say they're coming on Monday, and then they don't come back till Thursday. Well, that kindergartner's forgotten anything that was taught that day. So we kind of came up with that idea to do AMPM that way because we want them here daily to get reading and math. And we know that's so important. So that's where we came up with that. What'll happen is they'll have about an hour to an hour and a half of ELA, 45 minutes to an hour of math. They will get a specialist time, so they will get music, PE, library, STEAM. So they will have that in there too. Mr. Kinsey and I have been working really hard to schedule that. So we want those times in there. Teachers will do brain breaks so that they can get up and move. You know, we'll expect them to wear masks in those common areas, but we will social distance in the classroom, so they will all be in their desks, 6 feet away from each other. We won't go to the rug, obviously, for story time anymore, you know, to do those kind of things. We'll just do the best we can. We can be on the playground shorter than 15 minutes, right, Tobin? Without masks or with masks? I can't remember.
With masks.
With masks,
But they
because
can
those
be
are more. Right. We will try to separate them by class when they're out there, or we'll go at staggered times. So Ms. Palmer might take her class out together to play for 12 minutes, and then we'll go back in, and then we'll do hand washing, everything. You know, we're gonna have to teach them all of this stuff too, so it's gonna take a while, you know. It'll take a while for them to get used to their masks, and we'll make it a game. We're fun teachers, you know, that's what we do. We'll make it so that it's not painful or scary, or our teachers also have shields, so we can do that. At about 11 o'clock, we'll do maybe probably 10 to 11, we'll start doing lunches, and we'll probably do those in the classroom. So it'll be like a grab and go type kind of lunch, and then we'll have them on buses by 11:15. And then we'll do the same thing at noon. So kids will get dropped off at noon when they come in, and we'll do like a lunch in the classroom thing. So it'll be a grab and go bag. If they have already eaten at home or at daycare, wherever they work, that's fine. You know, we'll do our lunch, and then we'll move on to the rest of our day.
You want to address the cleaning between the two groups?
Mark thinks, you know, we have each wing, so they can get in and clean with our sanitizer. I think he told me about maybe 2 minutes per classroom to sanitize the whole room. You know, so we'll have one janitor probably in one wing and one in the other, and same for Mr. Kinsey's building. Also, we'll have the kids help. You know, they can wipe their own dust off with a wipe before they leave for the day. We do those things anyway. So we'll just add it in more frequently and try to do a better job.
Can kids still bring lunches from home?
I think they can bring lunches from home.
Yeah, I don't know if we've had that discussion.
I don't know if we've had that discussion. This is what happens. We get around the table and we're like, oh, well, I don't know how we're gonna come in. I guess we can't do the flag outside. You know, so that's what happens when you start talking, and come up with all these new scenarios that we've never encountered.
I would think that they'd be able to bring their lunch from home, just like be real careful about not sharing.
Yes, and we teach them not to do that anyway, so I think that would be fine. I know we can't bring birthday treats anymore, so no more cupcakes.
No more cupcakes.
Yes.
Are they gonna have the elementary, when they get sent home, are they gonna be expected to do work as well, or the school is over for them?
Well, no, because it's only a half day, we will have some expectations. You know, they're not going to be as much, obviously, as they would do if they were here. We're going to have some opportunities that are fun and engaging, and maybe more practice things that we know they can do pretty much by themselves, because that we know that lots of people work and that there's not a lot of time at night, and we don't want you doing that on the weekend. So, you know, we'll give them some fun things to do, lots of writing activities, probably social studies, you know, things that are interactive and fun that they'll want to do. And at some grade levels, that will be a fully online teacher doing that, and in some grade levels, it would be their teacher. So they will kind of have to get used to seeing more than one teacher, but that just teaches them flexibility, I think. Anything else? Mr. Kinney?
I'm Mr. Kinsey, the 325 principal. I did the AM/PM, you know, AM/PM, AD days. Any of them are going to have a lot of critics and people not behind them. The AM/PM, kind of the Jenny and I came down to, and obviously we told her and everybody else, is we believe it was important for the K-5 kids to be here every day, whether that was a half a day or not, but they're going to be here every day, which is pretty important for us. And to me, that's what it came down to, is it was best for both their kids, those K-5 kids to be here every day, even though that's what we have as the AM/PM. And it gets the AM/PM based on having to have half the classes in the social distance so that we can do some of those things. In 3 through 5, I designated an online teacher for them to be straight away. Andrew's working and Cindy's working with us on what that looks like. So they'll do all of kids, and they'll add to a few things with each class. Say a social studies standard or something like that. Working so that we have the right guidelines, the right boundaries, expectations, and things like that.
Will my fourth grader get AP class from that little teacher?
Your 4th grade is opted out.
Yeah, potentially. And she's in AP class at the moment, and I want to make sure she needs to get AP curriculum.
So that's some discussions that we had, that I would probably have the AP teacher handle that.
We have,
The thing that we,
Mrs. Goff would be able to offer some exploratory, some extension stuff with those kids that are in the AP or the gifted program as well.
yeah, and that's the issue with all of that sometimes is that, so I'm asking a teacher to do face-to-face and online and everything, so I don't know where our solution is going to be for that, but that's where my solution would be. If the AP teacher, if it's like, you do the 2 kids that are opting out, for the 3 kids that are opting out.
One of our core values, if you go to our SMAC document, one of our core things that we believe in a district is we want kids to be educated at the level that's appropriate for them, not have that driven by groupings or age or any of those type of things. So we will do everything we can to make sure your child is challenged at the correct level.
All right, thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the correction of the changes in the Lockwood school plan for the 2021 school year regarding COVID-19.
I'll second it.
It's a motion from Vance, second from Joe, to accept the changes to the COVID plan for the 2021 school year. So my one thing is this plan is probably going to change over time, just like everything else does. So it's probably won't be.
Any other discussion? Forward?
I just want to say that I'm really grateful for the planning that they've done and the willingness to look at research and make these changes based on science. And I don't know what to do.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
These are, looks like. Aye.
I think those still on mute. Those opposed? And that motion carries. And again, with that, we're gonna have to work hard with both Girls Club to try to help alleviate some of the, I understand that.
Yeah, and another thing, if we do start in yellow, if we do go into yellow, we may have to take a look, with the daycares, that's always been a controversial issue in this district, like busing kids to daycares. It's not as easy as it sounds, because we are breaking those kids up by their bus routes. So that bus that child rides may not even near that daycare that they want to go to, and that may, we may have to look at that. But I think we are open to considering daycares if that's a situation that helps parents out. As I said, if we get into the yellow or we get into the red, we want to bend over backwards and try and help parents. We understand that this is causing inconvenience for us, some huge challenges. Obviously, this is a situation that none of us ever imagined to be in, and certainly none of us want to be in. That said, I need to make a recommendation to you guys as far as where we're at and where I believe we're at with Yellowstone County. And like I said, all the various conference calls I've been on and different things. I guess one of the things I've kind of embraced with this, or the comment that really stuck out to me, is I would rather be overly cautious and be proven wrong than be overly aggressive and be proven wrong. As Trustee Borson talked about, possibly losing a child to the virus, or losing a staff member or a family member, resulting as a direct result of the decision that I recommended to you guys. That's hard to look at yourself in the mirror. The students we've lost, I still wake up at night and say, was there something we could have done better to catch these children before that happened? I lose sleep over it a year later, several years later. And we want to have all those things in place. And hopefully the situation that you referenced, that led to the Hope Swap. That's how we found the Hope Swap. And hopefully that's something that
I was representing different things that happened.
yeah, when we talk, we're leading up. And so my goal, we certainly don't want to do that. We want to put every precaution we can for the kids, for mental health, for the issues that parents are dealing with leave, and Kelly addressed as well too. But at this point, I think that we have no choice but to start in the yellow plan. And if we don't start in yellow, I think we need to start in red, based on where we are as a community right now. And what other districts are doing, I don't think that influences what we have to make as far as what our best decisions are. I'd rather start in yellow and school goes well for everybody starting, and we transition into green come the middle of September, than what I think is going to happen in other districts where they're going to start in what will be our green plan, and they're going to have to transition to red right away, is what I'm guessing happens, based on what's happened in other states. In the conference call we had with the American Academy of Pediatrics doctors, there's been 100,000 kids diagnosed with COVID in the last 2 weeks as schools start up in other states. My recommendation is we're going to start out cautiously. It's kind of what Mike talked about with the sports. Let's start out with nobody in the stands, and then hopefully phase into home fans, and then hopefully phase into everything, rather than gambling and going forward and then having to backtrack into that. That's my recommendation. Rob, I know put you in a bad spot, and like I said, we will try and do everything we can. And Kelly, I know put you in a bad spot. We will try and do everything we can. And even, just our conversation today with the Boys and Girls Club, hopefully they get the staffing, and that's an option for some of our parents, and reach out to your principals, and we'll do what we can. I think as long as everybody takes a positive approach to things, I think we can do problem solving and try to find ways to make things work. And we're here for you guys. We're customer service. I mean, that's what we have to do.
What's that?
You want to address it real quick?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Glassman, high school principal, no one in this community wants every single kid in this building working. I would say that.
Gordon, could you? pull
Yes,
your
sir.
mic down?
The 2 years of my time has been invested, right, last 2 years of my time has been invested in this building. You can ask my wife, you can ask my kids. So no one wants kids in this building to work to do. But if it takes all the detail, well, then I have to arm myself on this one, or meet the fight cracks and decide who wants to work. But, I can tell you that if taking baby steps to get there is the best way, I'm happy. I'm happy with that. I would rather get here on the side of caution. If this means that we do this for a few weeks and we're looking good and we can get everybody here, that's fantastic. I would rather go forward rather than backwards, because it's something that we did here, where we go and all of a sudden, we're a school that started up full board and then now shutting down because of how they started up. I would rather move forward with baby steps than have to fall off the cliff path with bigger steps this time. So that's just my opinion on that. Again, I would love to have 234 kids on the team here on August 26th. Nothing would make me happy. Nothing would make me happier. But I know that where we're headed right now, I just feel would be a safer step for us to get all those kids here. That's just my opinion.
Any other public comment?
I just wanted to add onto what you were saying, with the mental health and needing other care options. There's tons of organizations that would be willing to collaborate with the school and help with the community and making those things try to happen too. Optimist, PTA, there's individuals that are involved in organizations that we've just become aware of that are collaborating to try and make things easier on community and families. And I don't know what the Hope Project is. I haven't heard of that. I don't think of anything all summer, but the summertime and the time when the kids aren't here is when we really need to come up with something to keep them engaged, keep them involved, keep their spirits up. That's really, really important.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, I'm gonna go to the board. I'm gonna start. So there's not a day goes by I haven't thought about this starting school, how we're gonna start. 2 weeks ago, on Monday morning, I said, we have to start full board, everybody knows. But the CDC changed all their stuff on Tuesday of that week. And then Georgia started up and they failed right off the bat. I'm with Gordon. I've spent, I can't tell you how many hours in this building getting this thing done, and I want to see kids in this building. I've kind of backed my mind back into the point of, if we start part-time and we have some kind of outbreak, hopefully we can isolate that and we can at least keep the rest of those kids in school until we get through that outbreak. My concern is if we start everybody all at one time, and we have an outbreak, we stop and we're back to March 10th. And I don't want to be March 10th. I want to keep kids coming here and learning and not emergency learning. I want them learning for real and using our facilities. That's my personal opinion on this.
And we probably do a good enough job of addressing that. With those cohorts of 50, those cohorts of smaller cohorts and those grade levels, and as the principals talked about, keeping those groups away from each other. If we have a breakout in second grade, we may have to shut down that classroom, we may have to shut down the whole grade level, or worst case scenario, that school. But the middle school, the high school, and the intermediate school can more than likely continue to have students attend school on the yellow plan. As Tim said, it's more than likely if we have any kind of cases in the green plan, we're shutting every school down. And so it's kind of a cautious way to try and keep more kids involved on campus for a longer amount of time than to take the risk of going all of our chips in the middle of the table and having to shut all the schools down in the red immediately. So that, I probably didn't do a good enough job of talking about that as part of the plan as well too. We're keeping those kids in cohorts and bubbles so that if we do have a case or two, we don't have to shut everybody down, we just shut down certain areas.
I know that no answer is right. We just have to make the best answer we can, and we have to be flexible. So we have to put something on the table. I have a military background. You always make a plan. The plan never survives first contact. So as soon as things go, we may have to change our plan. Just people need to expect that. It's going to possibly change 2 days after school starts. We don't know. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can go and we can continue to improve and make headway in a positive direction, not a negative direction. That being said, we'll let other board members.
Yeah, I have a question. How far apart is the availability in the Boys and Girls Club and the need for Saturday classes?
They're hoping to get up and running by the Tuesday after Labor Day, so I believe that's the case.
Okay, and so whatever capacity they're able to provide for care and keep the children safe. How does that meet our needs for children who need that care?
I don't think we know until we find out what that demand is. We don't know how many families are out there that need that care. That's not something we can be able to measure.
Could we survey it? I mean, not before tonight, but.
Well, Boys and Girls Club, we just kind of came up with it. So.
Yeah, they came forward today. She came and talked to me Friday about the possibility if we'd be willing to partner with them on that. And then they had to make a decision to be able to move to that other space so that we weren't, so the game room, club game room, and lunch rooms that our kids cycle through on occasion, this year, are pretty close in proximity. So I don't think we'd have been comfortable having that elevated number of kids, but with them going into that 1950 building, and I think we can do well with that. That would be more for them to determine than us, I'll be honest with you.
Just trying to determine how big of a hardship it would be for our families.
Try to allow kids.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of things that we've, the sacred cows we've had in education that are going to go away with this situation. We beat the drum as loudly as anybody about attendance matters, and kids need to be here at school, and never been out since the NBA All-Stars and those types of things. A lot of those programs will have to go away. We have to give kids the benefit of the doubt. It's probably the same thing we're all experiencing with our employers. They used to have a doctor's note to prove you could use sick leave, and now we're, pretty much proving anything. If you've got the sniffles, a lot of people don't want you coming to work. So those type of things will go away. I think seat time is going to go away. I think we're going to not have a focus on that a kid has to have 1,800 hours to get a credit as an 8th grader or whatever it might be, and look more on have they addressed everything we expected them to do for this course. So this is going to be a huge paradigm shift in education moving forward, no matter if there's a vaccination next week. Things are going to change majorly. Attendance is one of those areas. We'll still encourage attendance as long as the kid's feeling well. It's such a tight, fine line to walk. I mean, We know we have kids that need to be here because they're out working, they should be if they aren't here. But on the flip side of that, we don't want to encourage a kid that might feel under the weather and make them feel that they have to come to school. You know, we've seen major breakouts where people went to work because they were worried about staffing shortages when they weren't feeling 100%. It's led to major outbreaks and deaths in our area. So, that was for,
Yeah.
Scott, do you have a comment, Scott?
Yeah, so who can hear me is children and staff, and the other board members.
Everybody can hear you, the whole audience and everything.
My two cents is that we go as green as the state and federal laws allow us to. And I just come up with that opinion based on the changing and the fluctuating information that we're receiving. To me, this law by the validity or accuracy of what we are receiving from those passing on information about COVID and the way it functions.
To make a prediction or
There's a lack of accurate information. So there's so many things going on. For me to try to evaluate everything, I just have to personally prioritize things. And for me, prioritize our responsibility for the students' education and structure that the school provides. But with that, if our responsibility also bleeds over into community safety or disease control, then are we guaranteed that all these students that we don't allow to come to school, are they going to quarantine themselves when they're not in school? If not, and then we're going to, so those are the kind of things that I think about even the information that we get, I don't know the accuracy of it. I think the continuity of the stuff that we experienced the last 2 or 3 months are losing procedures that we go through at the store, in our churches or other places. The continuity of those things don't even validate truth or accuracy or complete facts on what we're dealing with. So that's the school. Just, come to school once a week, but that's what we call sports that don't compete. They can't do together. They can't be together. Period. And I throw this in there. My thoughts sport going red. Like going red is so horrible. Well, if I'm not parent right, yellow is only 1 day a week that they're in school. So it's a bigger jump, it's a bigger jump from green to yellow than it is from yellow to red. I don't know 1 day a week if they're staying home completely. I don't see where this data shift in the.
It could be up to 3 days a week as needed within yellow.
But that's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else?
On the yellow part, I want to speak for a moment as an employer in the area that everybody on my staff has got school-age kids in other school districts. And I know in my little microcosm of the work world, we're making adjustments at the shop so that they can educate their kids or transport their kids or whatever. I would believe that most employers out there will help with individual circumstances. I can't believe somebody being so heartless that they can't. And it's just my input. yeah, we've got rules and policies and stuff to run a business, but it's families first, and it's kids that's above everything. So we're gonna make adjustments, and I would hope that other employers in the community also do so.
Kat, do you have something?
Yeah, I just, you know, one of the biggest concerns that I have heard from parents is really where these kids can go when they're not in school. And so I do, you know, we talked about looking into daycare, that kind of stuff, and changing the budget according to daycare, some of that stuff. So I do feel that if we do have to start in yellow, that, and I don't know if we can reach out to daycare or how we would do that, but I guess my biggest concern is that if we don't have safety nets in place, you know, parents are gonna, if their kids Tylenol because they're running this like fever and supposed to go to school that day because they have to go to work, and they're not sure what it is. And so that's my biggest concern is that we are putting other kids in danger simply because some parents don't like the need the help or the assistance to get them where they need to be. So if we reach out to daycares, make sure that we can do what we can to try to help the parents. I mean, other than this club, but I know the club is a great option, but it's not an option for everybody. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Is there a possibility that, I don't know what the, location of daycares in Lockwood area are, but is there a way that one bus could take daycare kids
That's the note I just gave myself as well.
from daycare to daycare, so
Kids
they're
are-
not piling into a bus that they don't really belong on?
Some of that would depend on the way we look at it. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide the buses for, so let's say bus 1 through 6 are the AM kids. Maybe what we can do is we'll try to work with first students, see if we can get one of those other buses. One of the problems with that is they're gonna need to be picking up the kids as soon as possible. So maybe we find a way to take those kids to an area, we do some activities with them. You know, then you're mingling kids from, you know, so anytime you come up with a solution like that, then you start looking at, are we mingling kids more? So, you know, we can take a look at some of that stuff and try to find out if we can do, I mean, if they're all in the same daycare, well, they're gonna be mingled anyway, so.
Well, I'm not wrong when I understand that we have a finite amount of money of, that, what do you want to say?
Yeah, we have some extra.
So there are some funding possibilities for making that happen.
We could take a look at that and, you know, maybe hit 3 or 4 large daycares and have that bus swing through there. You know, or maybe, we'll have to take a look. I think there's some solutions in there. I just worry about mingling kids one more extra time when we're trying to keep them isolated. So in the scenario we just talked about, if that second grade kid tests positive, now we might have to shut down Mrs. X's class, or maybe even the full second grade. But if that kid rides that bus and goes to those daycares, now we're shut down every classroom that every one of those kids that goes to daycare is in for that part of it. So,
And the daycare.
and the daycare. So.
So I was screwing with myself, thinking we're thinking about hiring as full-time subs. We have them do extra classrooms, but we think back to that sort of thing.
It's a Rubik's Cube. It really is. As soon as you think you got one side solved, the other side's all messed up.
Well,
we'll keep brainstorming with some ideas like that now.
I don't want to entertain a motion at this point.
I'll motion that we, go with Tobin's, proposal of starting with yellow.
I'll second it. So it's a motion from Sylvia and a second from Buddy to start in yellow. Is there any other questions or discussion from the board members?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Who's going, or is it like a content that we're going to decide on
So what we would do is we have that task force that we meet with the admin team and teachers representatives and Tim sits on there. I think what we would do is if the caseloads get better, the numbers start going down in Yellowstone County, then we would come forward and say, we think it's safe to go into green. And we could either have a special board meeting to do that, or if we go the other way, red would be, going into red from yellow to me would be either we have a major breakout affecting directly in Lockwood, or we get some sort of shutdown from the county or the governor's office. So that's how that would trigger the red. The triggering back into green, I think what we're going to do is we're going to monitor the cases in Yellowstone County. And, you know, honestly, I think what we do is we watch other schools and we see what happens. And if there's not breakouts, if things are going smooth between now and say September 15th, I don't even know if that's a Friday or not, you know, maybe we reevaluate at that point and take a look. You know, we do meet, the board meets on September 8th, you know, so we'll have, you know, about a week and a half, 2 weeks worth of, so if we could make a decision at that point, you know, and that can be, we'll wait another week, but if the cases stay steady or start to decrease, then we plan on going back into green. So the 8th would be a Tuesday, so, you know, maybe the 21st, you know, that 2 Mondays after that. You know, so I think there's some of those things. You know, when I talk with the parents on the Zoom call, you know, that we can sit and do what ifs all night, you know, and every situation is going to be so unique. I think we just have that task force take a look at it. We come up with a plan and a recommendation, and then we move forward. And I'll tell you, there's people on that task force who are pushing. They want us to be back fully open and think that that's the best way to go. So it's not just we're being overly cautious as a task force. We come to a consensus decision and move forward with it. So, you know, and like Gordon said, I think all of us really want to be in school, but we got to balance. Well, I never thought we'd be balancing kids' education and trying to keep them safe at home. Those two things usually mesh together great, and the situation is on opposite sides. Does that answer your question well enough, Pat? Or, I mean, I would expect for us, unless there's a directive and we need to go into red, any of those decisions would be brought to the board for a special board meeting to make those decisions. You know, I guess, or the other option is widespread. You know, all of a sudden we get a call from county health and we have 50 kids that have been exposed to Lockwood School. We may say we're going to red for the rest of this week. You know, that wouldn't be a permanent change, just to make sure that we don't have a huge outbreak. You know, it's to try and act and respond as quick as we can. And that would be just like a snow day. I would call Tim and all the trustees, make sure you guys are all on board and get a, you know, wouldn't be necessarily a special meeting, but, you know, kind of get that, everybody understands where we're at and why we're doing it type of situation.
Yeah, we're trying to make this decision 2 weeks out from school, and then try to make another decision 2 weeks after it starts, so it's.
I am in support of starting out at the yellow. One of the challenges I see, and I think it might piggyback off Scott, I didn't hear everything he said, but we get the kids back in school and suddenly Sadie and Lucy want to get together, or Haley or whatever. We're now mixing the kids. We need the cooperation of the parents to try to keep the kids isolated in the same buses and classes they're in. Otherwise, that mixing happens after school, and you're shaking your head. I don't know how we're going to be able to do that. I mean, we try, but they're kids. So that is a real concern I have, is we can do everything we can up here, but the kids are going to do whatever they want at home, or not at home in many cases. And so, you know, whether it be Harris Park or Miller Park or whatever, they're going to get together. And so it's a concern. I still think we need to err on the side of caution and go with yellow to start. So that's just my, I'm speaking in support of it, but aware of social aspect outside of it. Thank God they can't get over the social media.
We can only control what we can control. We can't, obviously, we can't go them outside of the school day. And some of that's gonna go back, I think Mrs. Fox mentioned the education part of it. You know, if you want to have a volleyball season, if you want to have a football season, if you want to come back to school and get it back to normal, you will follow these guidelines, you'll follow the social distancing and masking and those type of things. If not, then we'll be stuck in the situation we're in now longer and longer.
My concern is going back to what we had this spring, so we shut it down. Everybody kind of hit out for a while, but then you start seeing the kids like Mike's doing and basketball, and I totally get it. But I think we gotta take what steps we can, try to stay together as much as possible. I mean, I don't want to be in that situation where we shut the gates. We are,
Nobody's way too nice to be a TV studio.
any other comments? All right, we're gonna vote on this. All in favor of starting with yellow, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Aye or opposed, Cat? Cat's an aye, Scott's a nay.
That will pass, we're gonna start yellow. Again, in 2 weeks, hopefully we're still in the same situation as we started.
And please, and please, if this is a situation that's a struggle for your family, please reach out to your child's principal. We will try to do what we can to make that work as best we can. We understand that this is an inconvenience for a lot of folks, and we'll keep looking at maybe the daycare thing and what we can do with that. And what daycares are geared up and able to take kids and those type of things. So we're here to serve you guys, and so we will do what we can as much as we can.
I think we would go back to the class.
Yeah, the issue is then what happens if that sub has to actually sub, and
I know, so, just other, gotta throw everything on the table. Well, whatever. All right, we're gonna move on to the annual review with, the Lockwood Education Committee, and the teachers union has granted building, and thankfully, yes, and they recognize it. So, it has been great to work with, and they're all from Brooklyn Library.
yeah, you know, we talk about this all the time, that, you know, the consensus bargaining and the process we've been through, and you know, really just coming together to problem solve and not play poker and put all your cards against the chest, allowed us to work through this. We met for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we worked through some language changes back and forth via some email. Larry Martin, one of our attorneys, went through this, and we really worked off of the template of MTSBA and MFP. Okay, I'm still an MEA in my mind, I'm gonna say that. And they put out a template, we worked through that. We had our attorneys look at it. We changed a little bit of language on our end, they changed a little bit on their end, and I feel like that's an agreement that we can live with going forward. I know there's a lot of districts that are fighting over evaluations and you name it right now. So working with Teresa and April and Stephanie, it's always a pleasure. Pam sat in, family's quarantining, and so she sat in for the conference call at that time. So I don't know if you have any comments about Pam or.
I think the solutions that they were recommending, for the school districts to go by were very well thought out. Of course, there's a legal aspect to all of it as well. Montana law and how we have to do things with our teachers. The people involved in the call, 100% agreeable about what we needed in that interview and what we didn't need. And, just a matter sometimes of language and how to number things, but it went very well. And, I think that the community just has to be careful about how well this consensus bargaining is working in our school district, because what other school district do you know where school board trustees think of the library and one of her best friends? Especially when it comes to bargaining.
I would say, you know, the teachers unions are getting negative press across the country right now and push back on some of that. I would say 100% our teachers want to be back in school as soon as possible. I will tell you, when we gave teachers the option to opt out and teach from home, I had people that were cancer survivors or had ongoing immuno-health issues going to their doctors to get letters to say that they could come. And so it's not a situation of teachers trying to opt out or trying to be home for any other reason. And our union is amazing to work with, and they want 100% what's best for the kids, same as we do in administration, same as the board does. So, thank you, Teresa, for all your hard work.
I appreciate it.
Is there any questions from the public on the MOU?
I'm looking to approve the MOU with Lockwood Education. I'm not second that motion.
So it's motion from Sylvia, second from Pam to approve the MOU with the Lockwood Education Association. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to know at this point, once we approve this, do you still have to get approval from your?
No, I just got it done.
So you have the final say on it. So once we approve this, it's go.
And the board has to sign it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I do have one detail.
It'll be tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Scott, we can't see it. Yeah.
I'm having technical difficulty.
And those opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you.
Scott said aye.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay, approved to hire full-time substitute teacher. This is actually something I've wanted to do for years here. It's tough to do due to, tenure issues.
Prep issues.
Yeah, prep issues and the cost, you know.
So, Kat, this goes to address your question a little bit earlier about paras, and I think we had a comment earlier about the price of paras and bringing people in, or not paras, excuse me, substitutes. So we have the CARES money that's available, which we referenced that earlier, that has to be spent out by the end of the calendar year. And so this is kind of twofold. We knew that we would probably be short subs. Like I said, we referenced earlier, we have a lot of subs that are retirees, retired teachers, retired from other careers, fall in those high-risk situations, probably don't want to put themselves in that type of situation this year until things get a little bit clearer. We know that we're going to have teachers out. Let's just throw the COVID part out of things. We're going to have maternity leaves. Jenny, I'm looking at your building. We know we're going to have teachers sick. We know we're going to have teachers that have to deal with, or parents that have to deal with their own children's situations and those type of things. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times we have subs that work in multiple districts. You know, so do we really this year? Do we really want to bring a sub in that was at Shepherd on Monday and Meadowlark School on Tuesday and Laurel on Wednesday, and bring them into Lockwood on Thursday with all the potential of exposure? And so the idea was that we would go out and hire some certified teachers who could come in and be full-time subs. So now, once we have them here, they've learned how we do things in Lockwood, those type of things, they can step in for those long-term subbing positions. They can step in for whatever subs we need every day. We probably have in the building on an average day three subs per building, you know. So this isn't gonna eliminate our need for subs, but it's going to, help with that, and we'll have people that are consistent and that are not going out in other districts and possibly exposing kids more often. So, we have 3 recommendations tonight. We very well may bring more to the September board meeting. And again, we're paying these guys out of the CARES money that we got from the federal government and some of the monies that came from the government office as well too. So right now I recommend Bromley, Albertson, Samantha Heimer, and Trey Tinkersley as hires, and they would be off the 97-day contract. That's for first semester. It takes us to the last week of January, I believe, and all of our PIR days this year fall within first semester, so that's why it's 97 instead of 90. So.
I will so move.
I'll second.
Let's motion from Joe, a second from Pam to hire the full-time substitutes listed.
Refresh my memory, when we talked about this, that they will be able to get health benefits from the school.
Yeah, they're hired just the same as a regular teacher, but they're just hired for the first semester.
So can our health benefits that we pay for them be paid out of the COVID money as well?
I would think so, Lori, would you?
Can the health care be salary paid out of CARES money too? Their salary as well as their health care? It would fit right into those criteria.
And we worked out with the union, we talked about, so we have a provision where if a teacher teaches on their prep time, they would get that hourly rate. And so if these folks fall into that situation, it's the same situation, so they were relative to that. And they'll get full benefits while they're employed, so from September through January, if that's as long as the contract goes. This also gives us the option, if the situation goes in the second semester, we could possibly get additional federal funding or state funding to address the coronavirus. We can extend the contracts to the second semester if possible. That'd be a decision we need to get.
Any other questions from the public on that? No, okay, board? Oh, there's, oh, no.
Yeah, she's on that side.
Okay, the board, any other questions or comments? All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None vote. Those opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, the MOU with the sheriff's office. We sent to Larry Martin.
So, yeah, so there's what I'm asking for based on our attorney's advice. So this MOU is something that the county took from what is used in school district 2 with the Billings Police Department and Billings Catholic schools. And there's some typos in there. There's some language we want to work out. So for instance, one of the things says if we cancel the SRO for the rest of the year for whatever reason, they get to keep the money, but if they cancel it, they only pay us back on a prorated basis. So there's some of that language that our attorney's going to work out with the county attorney. And so what Larry recommended is that the board give myself and Tim the authority to continue to negotiate this contract and then approve it once it's finalized and meets the criteria set by our attorney. The biggest thing in there is the cost. So they used to provide us an SRO for free, but we had to split them with Huntley Project. Now we'll have an SRO of our own, which we did second semester last year, but we're paying the fee for them for, I believe it's the 9 months of their contract. Which I believe is 67,000. So that permissive levy that we put forward, where Lori and I talked about, we get that reimbursement from the state. That's part of what we'll use to fund this. And Deputy Senator's been phenomenal. What was that, Joe?
I said, do we get used to the cruiser for that?
We have had the cruiser go pick some kids up and things and transport kids home for different reasons. part of the cost, yes. So all of his training, all of the salary, all of his benefits, radios, leave, all that stuff. We pay one flat fee for them, and then they take care of all the salary. It's actually, you know, 67,000 is probably actually a pretty good deal for the qualifications of what he has. We're only paying for the 9 months rather than the whole year. And I'll tell you, so what Deputy Senate's been, we had a lot of issues with people out here with dirt bikes, skateboards, you know, just abusing the facilities. And so while he's on night shift, he's actually riding a bike around our campus. So this is like a lot. So Deputy Senate, I mean, he's a team player and a great addition to our staff.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Is that for our farm?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Go ahead, yell it out, yell it out.
So, you referenced that you spoke to an attorney about whatever the issue is you're talking about. Who is the attorney?
This attorney is Larry Martin.
Larry,
Larry Martin.
Thank you.
The district uses different attorneys for different purposes.
You go through a firm?
Sometimes.
What she's trying to get at is, are they like paid by the school district, or is it somebody that's volunteering this information to the school district?
No, you gotta pay lawyers. If you want a lawyer, you gotta pay a lawyer. That's one way it works.
So are we like do we retain multiple lawyers then? Or different?
I'm watching the School Boards Association have lawyers, we're a member of that organization, so you get those lawyers. Larry Martin is a local lawyer that does a lot of school law. And the school district has used him for as long as I can remember going to school boards from 1999.
We use them a lot, more specifically with like things like contracts, land type situations, so like easements and things we're dealing with the extension of high school stuff. So a lot of times we use Belmar for those type of situations. School Boards Association we use for different things as well too. It depends. I mean, we just kind of have different lawyers. Different lawyers have different specialties, just like different doctors have different specialties. So we work with different attorneys. And we have, I mean, there's special things that go along for schools and these type of things.
There's no extra fee for the MTSBA attorneys other than our membership in general, unless they have to represent us.
Yeah, if there's something specific they do for us, so like, you know, if it's a general consultation, hey, is this okay to go forward with this process or that process? That's usually not a fee for them, but if they have to draft a letter or sit in on a negotiation or something like that, then there's usually a fee. MTSBA is, you know, obviously the most economical way to that, but
And they're pretty well most experienced in this stuff.
well, Larry's been doing it longer than anybody in the state. I think.
That's part of the group.
When it comes to this, Larry's local, Sheriff's Department's local. We go through them, and we're either doing it on the phone, or they have to come down and they're saying.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not sure how to state it, but I'll move that we approve the MOU with the sheriff's office, subject to the final negotiations by June and October. That clear enough?
Okay.
I need a second. I got it. So we have a motion from Joe, a second from Buddy to approve the MOU, after it's approved by the attorney and negotiated by October. So.
Motion to, for the board to give you the authority to continue.
I think that's it.
It's in there, okay.
It's really just working that language out. Where is it?
Okay.
We just need to be able to sign it.
Uh,
So I was getting ready to get some thumbs up.
Great.
Any other questions from the board or discussion? Say aye.
Aye.
Stop. That's scary.
Yeah.
And those opposed? That passes. It's Larry Martin, so it could take a couple of weeks.
Yes. Okay, approve the job description for the IT manager.
Darlene, you want to address this position a little bit and what we're looking for?
Sure. So we, with all this networking stuff and everything else that we've done, it's really getting hard to keep up with everything, keeping up with the switches and adding all the different things that we are. So we looked into hiring a network specialist kind of job that his position would be, or their position would be in charge of like keeping the firewall up to date and it's working on switches and adding ports and all those sorts of things, more on the hardware end of it. And so that's what we were kind of looking for.
And some additional duties like maybe helping with streaming, meetings,
Mm-hmm.
helping with the website, different things like that.
And possibly being a backup maybe from Mark in some of his areas too.
Yeah, so like all of our heating and ventilation systems are now computerized. Our light system for the football field is computerized, correct, Mark? Yeah, so there's a lot of those type of things that somebody who doesn't see and somebody else can do for that.
I move we approve the job description for the information technology manager.
So motion from Joe, second from Pam to approve the job description for the IT manager. Any questions or comments from the public? Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And that motion carries. Now we're going to move on to action items.
So Darlene led the interview today and several administrators sat in on it, as well as one of our technology teachers. And they're recommending that we hire Cole Haugen as our IT manager. It's a year-round position, 260-day contract, so he'll be here year-round, just like Mark's guys. He was previously, I approved his resume, he was previously the IT manager at Sydney Schools and other Class A schools, so he kind of knows who he's getting himself into.
So that's just a typo, it's an IT director on the top, but it really is an IT manager position.
Yeah, what did we do but yeah, the job description was information technology manager. Yeah, that's probably my mistake there. I would call it the IT manager.
So I recommend you board hire, Cole Haugen as an IT manager.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion from Sylvia and a second from Joe to hire Cole Howard as our IT manager. Any comments, questions from the public? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? And that motion carries.
So with all the new facilities we have coming online, with Mike coming on board, we kind of started this a little bit with Tony. Maybe that's what drove him into retirement, I don't know. Melissa and Mike went through the process of looking at our facilities, took a look at what other schools are renting out, and phased in different costs for those different areas, recommended. This is actually part of our policy, so there's a policy change there as well too. Look at that situation. So we can certainly answer questions about any of those areas. One thing you'll notice is we do not rent out or don't have any rental costs for the competition gym. We are not going to rent that out to the outside groups. If our coaches or our teams want to host a tournament or something like that there, we will allow them to do it, but we will not allow any outside groups to utilize the main gym. Just safety wear and tear on that. That's part of what we don't get to.
lot there to go through. Like I said, there's the 2 policy changes go along with it. Recall, we have 3 categories. We have category 1, those are community groups, which memberships include primarily Lockwood students. Then you have category 2, which is community nonprofit organizations, community groups, which use facilities only, which are not necessarily Lockwood centric groups. So like I talked about earlier, the Symphony Day, we were going to charge them, they would fall in category 2. And then category 3 is like the for-profit organization. So if somebody wants to come in and utilize our facilities for something that they're going to have monetary gain. If you go into the policies, I've done those and how you normally do things with cross-outs. We get up the cost of janitorial or maintenance based on the increased costs that we're having for those type of things, as benefits and salaries go up. Last time we did this, and then we clarified it's per man hour, not per hour, just to clean.
So then is there going to be a suspension on renting space at all during, like, if we're in yellow or red?
So what we've approved, that you guys have approved already, is we still can rent space out. They have to provide a plan on what they're going to use it for, and how they're going to address masking, cleaning, those type of things. So we have had, so our coaches have had their camps and stuff going on. We've had a volleyball camp, we've had a football camp, basketball camps, those type of things have already been going on. So right now, once the governor lifted the fact that schools had to be closed, we were able to start doing those types of things. Pedestrian safety, we met in the community room this week, last week, I guess, again, you know, and we followed social distancing guidelines and stuff while we were in there. So.
So, Lori, can we approve this all one time, including the balls? Is that right?
We also added the floor protection fee. So we have the plastic that goes down to keep the floors from, so if it's a group, so like if a community bazaar and they need to use the gym floor, we don't want people in there walking on that, whether it is the, you know, the auxiliary gym or sort of a gym. So we would require them to have us set up the flooring and because of the amount of time it takes for Mark and his guys to set that up and tear it down, we do charge $100 for that as well. Mark, anything additional in this policy you need to address, or Mike? Anything?
Hey, Scott, Lori is more comfortable doing 2 motions if you're in the process of making a motion. One is to approve the updates, and the other one is to approve the policies.
So I make a motion to approve the updates on the facilities form procedures. That's my first motion.
Okay. So the first motion is a motion by Scott, second by Sylvia, to approve the facilities procedures and forms. Is there any questions or comments from the public on that? Anyway, how about the board? Any questions, comments from the board? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Scott?
Aye.
And those opposed? And that motion carries. And then the policies.
I make a second motion to approve the policies for the facility.
Is there a second on that? So, motion by Scott, second from Pam, to approve the updates of the policies. Any comments from the public? Any comments or questions from the board?
I do have one in, and maybe I just missed it in reading through it. Is there a difference in price if we have to turn the lights on for the high school stadium?
I don't believe we put that.
Well, I can answer that today, just going through our, something that I wanted to figure out, going through our, how we turn on our lights, and how it's monitored through the web. That we have a luxury of, if somebody is, renting those facility out, that facility out for that time, it tells us exactly how much energy and what price it is on that, on the website. So that's something that we can bring up in the future here, if that's where we want to go, because we can dissect it. When we turn those lights on, what school group or what outside group was there, and we can monitor it, moving away from that. But that's where it's at, I just learned that today.
Okay. And we'll monitor that, but those LED lights, Mark, there shouldn't be too much cost associated there, is there? Do you believe?
No,
Yeah, I just didn't see a price in there. I was expecting maybe $50 per hour, or 45, whatever.
So that might be something I think we monitor and look at that, update that.
I think we take a look at what a football game would, kind of run and monitor that, and if it gets to the spot where we need to adjust that, and we come back with it, we can definitely monitor.
My office doesn't monitor the year, so we can.
Well, they can track it correctly.
We can track it, where it's lights on. So that was a good point. I think we come back to that. Leave it as it is. That's my opinion.
I think that's what we learned, this is what it's like.
Yeah.
We want to start charging for those lights. It's as simple as running a report right after that lights are on, turn off.
I don't think we can turn the lights on just to find out.
And along with that, it kind of piggybacks on the same thing, but the use of this facility. If I brought in professional development and I've got somebody speaking here, I'm not using a very expensive projector lamp. But if I'm streaming a video in, I'm using resources. Just an interest I had here. That's all.
Well, that's a good thing. It's because this stuff's bigger than we've ever had before.
Yeah, it just, I know these are all LED, but if you're running them all day long for an 8-hour conference for somebody to have professional development, is the fee based on using all the lighting? It's a huge difference if it's dark and you're lighting up a speaker, or if you're lighting the whole room.
I don't know how we do that. We monitor that. That might be something to look at. I think that's a great point.
But mostly the spots in the projector were originally thinking.
See how fast the meter turns on the spot.
I think we could approach it similar to, switching back to school, this is a good starting point, and if we find that, we are losing more costs, then we can then, but we can sort of, so that way we can get it.
I it's something to try. I mean, the spotlights are all LED and everything, but there's a lot of power coming in these buildings. There's so many lights. All right. That being said, if you have any comments, we need to review this. We don't mark it as a test. All right, so we're going to vote on the policy updates then, as they are presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Who's got it?
I think he's sketchy. Yeah, we got it. Aye.
There we go. And those opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we're going to be Lockwood Parent Teacher Association.
So I guess I'll give you the background on the situation, and there was a couple of comments made earlier in public comment regarding it. I guess I would agree that this is probably something that we do table tonight, but I think they need to understand that they are not approved school support organization at this point because they have not turned in their bylaws and such. I don't think there's any hard feelings on here. This is really kind of a more of a paperwork situation. 2 years ago or last summer, we went through and updated all of our policies. One of those policies included policy 4210. And it lines out, and it's a, you know, I would say it's probably a model policy. I don't remember us having a huge conversation about this and making any major changes. But one of the reasons we went through that policy change is to bring our policies up in accordance with what our policies need to be as we add the high school. And, you know, I probably dropped the ball on this. I should have reached out to PTA immediately once this became policy. I didn't even think about them being a school support organization. And when Mr. Derrick was here, as we kind of got into the summer, we started doing some work as far as anticipation of starting with booster clubs and those type of things. Obviously, we didn't have anything to stop them without events without any fans this year. And a lot of these guidelines go along with booster clubs just to make sure that you're complying with Title IX and all those type of things. And as we started looking at this, it's like, yeah, this is PTA falls under this situation. And I don't know that in my time here, they've ever submitted a copy of what their bylaws are, any of that type of information. So this kind of, I didn't go out and address it with them right away. I kind of just waited till the start of this school year, and they got up and running, and they had a bunch of changes in their leadership. And so what happened is about sometime in the last month, I don't know how long ago it was, probably 3 weeks ago, I was reached out to by someone that was working with the PTA. They were looking at trying to do a fundraiser, making masks, and they wanted to utilize the new Lion's Head logo, which is a trademark logo. And so I just responded and I said, you know, here's the situation. This is trademark, so they shouldn't be able to, they're not really able to use it unless they get approval from the board to use it. And so there was a couple of different issues. One is all I asked them for was to go through and put the information here. And I would think state PTA would have something available. Like I said, this is a model type policy. Just basically say that they will follow all of our procedures, those type of things. I also asked them to give us a list of who their president, vice president, those type of things were, because I didn't really know who we could reach out to when this first came up. And we also go through a process internally with fundraisers. Anything that's going to be a fundraiser that has the school's name attached to it has to come through a fundraiser form, and we approve that. In the past, we've sat down with PTA at the start of the year, and we've lined out everything they have on their calendar for the year and pre-approved it, or if something came up, that we would approve it. And some of that stems from probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. We had situations where we had very similar fundraisers going for similar groups. So we had like the discount cards going with athletics, going the same time as the Blue Books for music, and maybe another class fundraiser. And we had a parent come to me, I think they came to Mr. Plaza first and said, hey, my son's selling all 3 of these things at one time. And so what we try to do is we try to approve any of those fundraisers with dates and what they're doing and who they're selling to, just to avoid any of that cross stepping on toes. With the masks, I know that Tony was looking at masks as a possible athletics fundraiser. Mike said he would step away from that. And then right after I had talked to them, I know Ashley Cox and our CCLA started making customized masks that they're selling as a fundraiser as well too. So that's what we try to avoid. Right now, what we're doing is we are waiting for PTA to come forward with the information that falls underneath the school support organization. So basically giving us their bylaws, rules and procedures, who their treasurer are, so that Lori can communicate with their treasurer, make sure that they're following the same type of accounting principles that we need to do, and all those type of things. You know, there's 8 points here in the policy that you guys adopted. And so once PTA brings that forward, you guys can consider and approve them as a school support organization, which then allows them to utilize our mascots, our name. We can promote them, those type of things in our internal communications or communication with parents. But at this point, they're not approved for that. And so until we get that information, that's kind of where we're at. So I would recommend that we table
And when we table this action until next month's meeting, to allow members to comply with policy.
We have a motion from Pam and a second from Buddy to table the approval of Lockwood PTA as a sport organization.
Do we, so under my understanding, we are not, we don't fall under, after talking with the state, it seems as though we do not fall under the school support organization, we fall under the individual donor and individual organization. So, and I do have someone here who can verify that we are our own entity, because we have our own board, we have our own EIN number, and we have all separate accounts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is my understanding, as after we've met with the state PT. So I don't know unless you consider us something different, but from what I understand, what I was told from the Montana State PTA is that we are our own organization. We're not a school support organization that falls under that category. So unless you have.
I don't know how you would have to follow that individual donors out. It's just a donor to your organization.
Right, we are an individual organization, not a school support organization that is governed under you guys, under the school district. We're completely different.
Well, since we're thinking about tabling this, I guess we can run that past, Montana School Boards, lawyers and school districts.
I've already read that association.
Yeah, I don't know how you're not an organization, because you're an organization. You're a
Well, we are, that's like I said, we are an individual organization, but not a school organization.
Are you a school support organization?
Parent or booster organization. You are a parent organization, so I don't know how you would fall under.
So Cheryl Schaefer, is here from Montana State PTA. That's Jamie, I think you were talking about, or who you guys have been talking with. I don't know if she had something to say or comment, or was just here. I know those guys have reached out again. I don't know all the conversations, but Cheryl is here from Montana State PTA, and that was the guidance that you brought, right?
Right.
So I just like to add to this that we totally didn't need to do anything to be malicious or to steal your mass fundraiser. And if we didn't know about this token, and I appreciate you acknowledging, I did read in here that you're gonna get a liaison to kind of navigate this stuff in the future so that you'll have, I don't know, it says in the policy that you're gonna appoint a liaison.
Yeah, once you guys are approved, we'll assign the liaison to the group.
Okay, so you just, what Jamie's saying, when we got all of this, honestly, this is a lot for me to process and to know what we're supposed to do or whatever. So she reached out to the Montana State PTA. We're just going off of what we're being told. Michelle Stokes from the Montana State PTA organization said, just to confirm, local PTA units are independent, not school support organizations. The PTA unit controls their funds, not the school. This unit decides and pays for what, and its members decide and pay for what they decide fits their PTA vision and goals. So I think just, like, by you saying you're tabling it, I think working, if we can collaborate with you and just better understand where we get into this and how we're supposed to do things in the future, we'll eliminate.
And this policy doesn't have us take care of your funds. Your funds are your funds. We just need to know who's doing what. That's what it comes down to.
And I understand that, and I think that that's something that.
I mean, it's, before we got to high school, PTA was pretty much all it was. You know, once you get to high school, you start getting football boosters and those kind of things, and that's where you start running difficulties. Problem is, if you require football boosters, you're like, that require everybody else.
Right. And so, and I've never seen this before. I've never seen you guys approve anything, so I've never seen, I've been to a lot of board meetings, I've never seen anybody else, we even use this, the PTA used it to coloring books, I didn't see it yet, because I don't know if it like happened on the.
But that wasn't a fundraiser.
So only fundraiser.
The coloring books, yeah, Yeah, so you're talking about two separate things. So first and foremost, we have to approve the PTA as a school support organization so that you can utilize our name, our logos, any of those type of things. On the other side, any fundraisers, and Charity, you've been part of that in the past.
Right.
We bring those forward. I mean, I think we usually sit down, what is it, September, right away, when the school year starts, Lindsay, and we go through, this is when we're gonna do the coin grind, this is those type of things. So we get those on our calendars so that when, Choir runs a fundraiser, we know we're not stepping on the toes of the PTA and vice versa. And so we've always approved the fundraisers to the things. So the coloring pages, those were just something we did extra for the community. That was not any kind of fundraising type. You know, so,
Getting in the bylaws before, that was stuff I would, I knew the fundraising. That we always love those out there.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, the board wants 3 years, I don't think we need to get in our bylaws.
no, and this policy didn't go into effect until last summer.
Yeah, it just came in.
So this was one of those updated policies that we did as we anticipated bringing the high school on.
Not last year, just this year. It's the new one.
Well, last summer. So if you look at the policy, it was adopted on July 9th, 2019. And so like I said, that's my omission. I didn't even think about it applying to you guys until we started looking at booster clubs. And then I'm like, oh, we've got to approve PTA as well too. And so all we're asking for is your bylaws, a list of those things. There's 8 things here, real simple as far as the rules and procedures. Like I said, I think most of that stuff is probably available from the state PTA. And once we have a list of who your officers are and those type of things, then now we'll come in front of the board for approval. I don't anticipate it being an issue. I don't want to assume how the board's going to vote, but as soon as you bring us that information, we'll bring it to the board for approval. You guys can go ahead and utilize our logos and those type of things. And as it says there, we'll have a liaison with the PTA, an assigned liaison.
Yeah.
I wanted to address it from my understanding of it is this, we approved this policy to protect groups that are affiliated with the school. So that I couldn't go out with my daughter and design something with a logo and profit by it and the school gets nothing. It's to protect our trademark so it is used for the school. And then we give that authorization to the organizations that are supporting the school. Does that make it easier? I mean, I have to think simply, it's not that complex.
Do you have
Thank you.
bylaws prepared?
Yeah, because we have to send them to the state every year.
Okay, so it would be a fairly simple process.
Now, if we, I mean, if we do fall under the individual, does that still, we would still have those? Yeah, could we still be both? I mean, could we still be working with you guys in that sense?
We don't want you to leave. You know, what the PTA has done to the school district throughout the years is tremendous. We don't want that to stop. We just have these rules and policies we need to fulfill.
But what is the difference between us and a school support versus an individual donor or organization?
Well, because you're an organization, you're not an individual. So you have a committee and you have members of that committee.
The difference, I think, is being able to use our logos and mascot, stuff like that.
But would see that would be to your advantage to consider yourself as a organization.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot of differences. We would have to have your bylaws on record and then, you know, the rules and procedures in which you operate. Both of them have the board, you know, a statement that goes here to the board policies and administrative procedures. Open and unrestricted. You know, honestly, there's really not a lot of difference. It really comes down to having the bylaws on record. You guys already have those sessions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So my question is, if I see a policy that I would like to make a suggestion to make a change, I don't understand. I'm confused as to when you would bring that up in the board meeting. And I only bring that up now because I don't know when else to ask. put in an email, I asked him in an email. Tobin, you replied that if I wanted to make a policy suggestion change, that I needed to ask you first, and then you would contact the attorney and figure out, you know, if it's legal or not, and it's even something that you could propose to the board.
It's my job to
And
propose.
Tim said, no, Tim didn't know what you said to me. Tim, you said I stand up in my 3 minutes in public comment.
You can always do that.
Yeah.
You can always do that in public comment.
So I don't, like, not if I haven't contacted Tobin. Is that correct?
If you want to see change,
Yeah.
you should contact me because I'm the one that recommends the policies to the board.
So if I make it in a public comment, it goes to that here.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, it's something that we think that would be applicable to us, but if it's something you want to see action on, I would say, yeah, just bring it to me as far as what you're looking for.
So you're the gatekeeper, basically, of
Well,
making
it's my job to recommend policies to the school board.
and you're gonna contact the attorneys, and I doubt it, then do you have to show that you've contacted attorneys, or like, how do I know that it's not just your opinion? Do I trust that you contacted the attorneys?
You don't know that it's not my opinion. That's my job to make recommendations to the school board about policy. So that may be my opinion, it may be attorney's opinion.
I just wanted to understand the process.
Yeah, we do policies every 5 years probably.
But we make policy changes all the time, we make them tonight.
That's because
We updated them.
a lot of times, then what the school boards sends us recommended policy changes, very few of them do.
So after a legislative session, as soon as those laws go into effect, you'll see us probably make 20 policy changes on average. So as we go through and update different things, there's different policies that do get updated as we go. A lot of it's based on changes in law. We adopted probably 2015 policies as far as with the COVID situation under a recommendation from the School Board Association.
Thank you, I didn't know how.
Yeah, and that's, we had, last year, we spent months, they come out, bring a set of policies, we go through a bunch of policies in work sessions, that are open public meetings.
Well,
And we do those piece by piece, it takes 6 months.
There are 4-hour meetings, and we talk through 1 or 2 series per meeting.
I didn't want to suggest something that maybe isn't legal, or if I just don't know any better, but I have to trust that you are contacting the correct people and finding out.
Yeah, that's my job.
All right, next one.
Hi, I am Cheryl Schaefer, the state president, and I just need a little clarification on something I read, so I can help work with the PTA and help them and offer them some guidance and direction. Under this, is it 4210 or 4510? 4210, I'm not sure what I read. Does all monies get turned over to the school? I thought it said in there something about the monies go to the school and at their discretion they can, and I may have misread this. So I was wondering if I could just have clarification.
No, it does not involve them turning any of their monies over to us.
I'm sorry, what?
They would not turn any of their monies over to the school.
Okay.
But if they do turn the money over to the school, from what I understand, it can go into a just general fund, it doesn't necessarily go for what the PTA fundraising for, is that what I'm understanding?
No, not necessarily. So the reason that is, so what you have situations where Manhattan Schools is the prime example in Montana. They had a football program that was raising tens of thousands of dollars. And they had a volleyball program that wasn't getting any funds raised for it. So this booster club was donating all this money to the football program. So the football kids had warm-up jackets and they were eating state dinners and those types of things. And that became a Title IX violation because you weren't treating the two genders equally with the schools. And so we have to have some sort of control over that to make sure that we're not getting into those type of situations. That's not saying we're going to tell you, if you go out and say you're going to raise the funds for, you're going to add something to the lines there, we're not gonna say, no, we wanna put that money towards new basketball hoops on the other side of the campus. It's really to protect so that we don't get into a situation that gets us in trouble with the state Title IX. And so Manhattan got all sorts of penalties and in all sorts of trouble based on what booster groups were doing, not necessarily what was going on in the school. Am I correct on that, Mike? Is that, I don't know.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what group you are with NHS, even an individual donor can't expect to buy football stuff. You guys might be raising all this money as a group and want to give it to a certain athletics or, you know, the arts or whatever else it is. Now we become in violation because of not only Title IX, but also Ridgeway. And so there's two things that we have to follow. And so that's my job as an athletic director, to follow those rules so it's not equal across the board, but it's as of need. And so I may tell you, no, thanks for the money, but I may tell you, no, because it doesn't follow either the order that we've been in, that I put teams on to accept money, or how do we build that going forward. So it's not saying we don't want the money, but we have to use it legally so we're not in a violation and getting our kids eligible for college sports, all those things that can come into effect, how we're using our money.
So
we'll never turn our money away. We're going to organize it in a way that's going to be legal within NHSA rules, Ridgeway, and also Title IX.
So that language is in there to protect against those things. It probably is not very applicable to you guys at all, because the things that you guys are going to do are not going to be based on one program or one gender or those type of things. If PTA gets involved in things that Mike's doing, it might be to be a sponsor for a basketball tournament that we're hosting, or sponsoring, you know, a football camp. If you do the football camp, then we probably need to do the volleyball camp as well too.
So as long as we're communicating with our stuff, camp, like we can tell the community, hey, we're going out to raise money for this reason, and you guys will earmark it for that reason if you agree that it works.
Well, and that goes back to why we need to have the fundraising forms, because if we see a red flag before we approve the fundraiser and say, yeah, we probably can't do it that way, we need to make sure that it's being, you know, used between the two genders or the different programs. We would be able to catch that beforehand to say, before you go out and tell the community, hey, we're raising all this money and it's going to go to the girls' choir. And then that comes to me or comes to Mike and they say, whoa, we can't just put it to the girls' choir, that has to go to all the music programs. And so we would be able to tell you before you go out and fundraise that, so that you're not, you know, not telling the community one thing and then that money being used for something else. So if we catch it early enough, you go out and say, hey, we're raising this money for all the music programs from K up to high school.
So just a quick, and I'm not really affiliated with, I'm used to a PTA, but by state law, a booster club's money has to sit within the athletic account in the school. These booster clubs that are out there like Manhattan that have the luxury of saying, here, coach, here's $5,000, and that nothing goes to the game. By state law, a booster club is supposed to be in the bricks and mortar in our account. And I disperse that money, however, so what I call one-time money. I'm not sure what PTA is in that sense. I don't know if it's different, but I know a booster club specifically that wears our brand has to be inside our school system. They can fundraise all they want, but I have the luxury to follow the guidelines and needs. And that's there's a lot of gray area there throughout the state, but if we're gonna start creating stuff, we have to follow those guidelines.
And I think the number 7 is that one that subcategory there is more direct towards booster organizations. So it doesn't say in the first sentence, but then it says booster organizations may make recommendations that cash or other valuable considerations must be given district using discretion. That, I don't think that applies to a parent support organization, which is what you guys do.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Tim, could I recommend that this discussion be held outside of the board meeting so that an understanding can be had, and we could go ahead and table this next week or next month, and you guys do understand one another?
I like that a lot. What you're saying is you're calling for a vote. You call for a question.
I'm calling for a vote
Okay.
on tabling this conversation until some consensus can be made outside the board meeting. I'll second.
You don't have to second it, you can just call for it. Okay. So we already have a motion from Pam and Buddy to table the motion that Parent Teacher Association. I'm getting so sorry. So, and Pam is calling for the question. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna vote on tabling this, and then PTA president can get together with Tobin on the phone or however that works.
I was wondering where we could find the trademark section of our logo.
Well, we're gonna vote on this before we jump into anything else. So, so all in favor of tabling this item?
Aye.
No opposed? And that motion carries, so that item is tabled. So what was your question about the trademark?
I tried to see if our logo was trademarked, and I can't find it anywhere. I didn't know.
Well, I know our trademark logo is running around with some people that they've taken the trademark symbol off, because there was a guy selling face masks on Facebook. By doing that?
So ours is trademarked.
You go out in the hallway and look at the giant sign going into the gym, it's got the TM right there.
So all the high school stuff is trademarked. The old line is not trademarked, that's free use. But the new high school line is trademarked. So there's people in the financial world, or whatever you want to call business world, have been trying to use our using our logo.
So that one, fantastic. Anything that went through, BSN Sports, any of our new logos, that is all trademark. Our Riley Jessica, it's all trademark.
Can I ask a question for just clarification? Mike, you referred to yourself as the athletics director. Are you athletics or all encompassing activities director?
Absolutely activities.
Okay, okay. I just want to know for.
That's the term that I think that's part of it, that I am the activities director.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to employee termination.
I hope that we move forward with terminating this employee.
There's a motion from Pam, second from Sylvia to terminate